Hey.
You need glasses?
No, I'll make it. Okay. Ready?
We are ready.
All right, let's do our little speech, right?
We don't have to do the thing if we're meeting in person.
Oh, cool.
All right.
All right, first order on the agenda is welcome Joyce Gilmore.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for stepping up and filling a hole in our team. We do really try to function as a team and we've done well. You have a long history of being involved with the town of Mendon. So we greatly appreciate it. We look forward to hearing some things from your past
Oh,
that
dear.
may work in the future.
Yes. Yes,
So
that's-
thank you very much. Have you formally met everyone?
I have, yes.
Okay,
I came around and to introduce myself to Kim and I mean, I know everybody else because I've been around, as you said.
Joyce is a presence.
no doubt about it. I was trying to wave to her today as she was leaving to play golf, but I didn't get her attention.
Oh, you're right, because I was like, I gotta get down there. so
You-
that
you were-
I
you
can
were
get
doing
back
well.
home, Get dressed up.
When I saw you shoot across 16, you were all business.
That's not a mission.
It's crazy how sometimes, one time I was 11 minutes waiting to get across, to go
Wow.
down to play golf.
Yep.
So lots of times I go up and around and over through the back of the building. So,
Well, thank you again. We have a lot to do.
well, I'm happy to do it. I loved it when I did it before. It was something that I did for a lot of years.
How many years did you serve on the board?
It was like 14.
Wow.
Yeah, but I started not knowing anything and I ended because of the way things were, the way things happened. And I'm so grateful to the town because I was able to go to school at night. I wanted to be an at-home mom and I want to be with my kids and, I was a nurse and I'm still a nurse in my head. But I think I was telling them that the first meeting that I went to, they said to me, oh, well, just sign the septic system plan. And like I said, yeah, no, I can't do that. I don't know anything about it. Well, no, just sign it. That's all. You just put your name on it and it's fine. And I did this and, I was in my 20s and it was like, no, I can't. So they said, well, you know what? You can go to school. At that time, the town would pay for you to go to school and college wasn't that bad,
Right.
So I started with public health law at Clark University and had the great fortune of having Milton Rafelson, who was an attorney, be the teacher. And he took a liking to me. He's like a dad, And so he gave me guidance along the way. And by the end of the time, I ended up going to, when my son was going to college, I was going to Harvard Graduate School at night to their
Fantastic.
the environmental engineering course. So I ended up having certification for environmental engineering, which, and all the public health things I was doing all along, because I was doing everything. I was doing, restaurant inspections, teaching CPR to the police and the firemen and
About that, huh?
all different towns and, the Heimlich to the restaurants. I did, restaurant inspections. Anybody here?
We do have a couple of folks that are on.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing, doing the restaurant inspections and teaching them CPR and Heimlich. And we had a great experience because somebody was choking and the waitress was able to save them. And,
There you
it's
go.
all kinds of things like that, you know, but it was over years, you know, it was one.
Well, yeah, that's a long time to serve.
It was, you know, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it, you know. The only thing that happened that made me stop was because I went to the finance committee and said, you know what? My kids are going to college. They're working. My husband's working. I'm working all the time, but I'm not getting paid. And they said, okay, well, you know, I said, I just need $15,000. And so they said, well, we'll get back to you. And then in the end, they said, you know, we can't do that. So I said, okay, you know, sorry, you know, it's been a great run. I loved every minute of it. Thank you for everything that was, you know, made available to me. And then I got a job at an engineering firm, which was more than 50,000.
Yeah.
And then they called me and they said, oh, you know what, we can do it. And I said, sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
Because they needed to pay 60,000 for an engineer who wasn't there full time. And then 30 for the restaurant inspector and blah, 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 blah.
yeah, no, you have a lot to offer. So
Well,
believe me, we will lean on you.
I will try. I will try to do whatever you need to do. And, you know, I love doing it. You know, I love this stuff. So,
Awesome. Unfortunately, and I hate to even say this, but COVID kind of slowed us down and backed us up a little bit.
everybody I know in every field.
Right, and we need to catch up on a lot of things and get a lot of things finished so that they're not constantly on the agenda.
Right. Yep. You know
Jack's
what?
only been with us a short time and he's already seen the same thing over and over and
Right.
over again. So
Right.
there are things that we have, like well regulations, that we want to update
Right.
to cover
Yep.
the times.
Yep. I'm
There are
just looking
things
at
like
that.
dumpster regulations that we don't have, that the community has got to the point where we need to have them.
Right.
And then there's all kinds of things that have cropped up in between, as, you know, roosters and different things like that, that we need to address to keep the community protected.
Right. And you know what? I am so in agreement with that. I mean, I was just saying to Jack, I loved the presentation that he gave me to go through. So that was so compact and so well done. I thought, oh, that's good. And I'm like going to bed and thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe we could do this.
That's awesome.
It's like, you know, it's like,
Well, again, we try to work as a cohesive team.
that's what I like.
However, we're very respectful of the fact that we're all different.
Right.
And we don't have to vote the same way on everything.
Yep.
We definitely don't want to be, you know, just cheap.
Right. That's right.
So, you know, we're not always looking for everybody to be in agreement. It's really
think
okay
that's
not to
perfect.
be.
That you have, we all are different and, you know, we come from a different spot and I think that's great. You
Well,
know,
we try to keep in mind that
Right.
we're trying to represent the community
That's right.
that elected us.
Right.
So we're entitled to have our personal opinion in the ballot box. But when we're thinking about different issues that come up that are brought to us by the community,
Right.
we really try to think in terms of the community, not necessarily what our personal opinion
Right.
might be.
And I think in conjunction with that, we're lucky because we do have laws that we have to follow.
Mhm.
And for me, that was the big deal. You know, people would say to me, and I'd say, you know what, this is the law. And I know a lot of people that were in my field were, you know, offered different things, but I can tell you this right now, nobody offered me a candy bar because all I kept saying was, you know what, this is the law. Whether you're my friend or my enemy, this is the law. I don't do better for you than I would do for you. I give you the exact same thing. And, you know, I was called the Board of Health bitch for, you know, a while. People didn't like that or didn't think that was what it was, but, and perhaps I was that, you know.
Well, I never heard that.
Oh, good.
And I've been
Thank
in
you
town
for saying
30
that.
years, so I
Thank
never
you.
heard that.
Well, I hope not, but in the beginning, because I think more so because I didn't know that I had to go look everything up, because that's how I am. I'm like, okay. And back in the day, as I say to my kids, and they say, was that back in the day? I say, yeah, everything's back in the day. The select board had a library, and it had all the general laws. So you know what? I would go in there, sit on the floor, because I could do that. My knees were good then. And go through all the laws, and that made it easy for me,
Right.
that,
Tom's very good at that. Tom is very good at finding the paragraph and the chapter.
right,
The only issue we run into sometimes, and maybe this will be a good thing having you on the board, is sometimes when you read 3 paragraphs below, all of a sudden what you thought was in paragraph
Right.
1 might not be quite as cut
same
and
thing,
dry.
right.
There-
yeah.
There's little snags that we run into when we get to the 3rd or 4th paragraph
Right.
sometimes. So, again, welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here, really, and I think that we all seem to have the same thoughts going on, and I love that, so.
Awesome.
Anybody else have any comments they want to make?
No, I met with Joyce a couple of days ago. She introduced herself to me. We had a great conversation with one another. I'm really looking forward to working with you, and I'm really happy to have her.
Yeah. Did you miss my spiel at the last meeting? I
Oh,
was giving you kudos left and right, up and down. You were like, people walked out of here going, she's the lady. No, just, welcome.
Well,
It's great.
thanks.
Well,
thank you.
I don't think we could have gotten a better candidate. I would also, which I didn't do at the last meeting, so formally I'd like to recognize Mike, and actually making the call to you. Mike, thank you, Morelli, yeah.
Right.
And so he kind of got the ball rolling, and great that you kind of looked at it and talked to your husband, and he
Yeah.
gave the thumbs up.
Yeah, well,
is great, so.
I should say this, that he's the wind beneath my wings, because he's not the type of guy that's going to go out and do that. But he supports everything that I do, and he's, a helper, and, that's why we've been married for 57 years.
Good for you.
57.
God bless you.
Wow.
There's a record.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
was 3.
No worries here. I didn't do well at math.
That's awesome. 57.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Good.
We look forward to continuing on. I think we're probably gonna bounce back between remote and in person. Depending upon people's schedules and what we have going on. And obviously, we're aware of your Wednesday commitment.
yeah, it's only 3 more weeks.
Okay.
though, So, but thank you for being so appreciative of that.
Sure.
No, no.
That was so great. I was, and my person that sets up the golf too, she's put me out first all the time. So that's good too, so we're all working together. They like that I'm doing this too. They're like, oh, yeah, good.
We don't want you having any animosity toward the board or doing a double bogey on a hole.
Well,
right?
yeah, no. And let me just say this about that. My mother used to say, you can't let your eyes talk for you, because but so I've learned to speak what I'm thinking and not be cranky,
I'm not playing poker with her.
Yeah, it's a good point.
All right, so let's move on to the next
in.
topic.
The next topic is the CMRK recycling for the town of Mendon. Unfortunately, Taylor has some conflicts of scheduling. We spoke this morning, so she won't be able to join us tonight. But again, CMRK recycling for the town of Mendon is going to take over the simple recycling that we had. It was the pink bag program. Basically, it's the same exact thing. They are located in Northborough, Massachusetts, so really local. They have online scheduling where you can get all the items that you want to donate, get it all together, register online, pick a date, and they'll come and pick it up free of charge to the town. They also provide bins, clothing bins. That's something that we'll have to talk with the town about, if we want to get bins for the town and where exactly we're going to place them. And again, I was hoping to have Taylor on to explain more and,
Well, I love this whole thing. That was very good. I mean, because of my environmental engineering stuff, you know, I get crazy when I see stuff on the street and, you know, doing all these things. This is perfect. I think this is great.
Good.
I mean, I used the pink bag. I still have the pink bag that they gave me for the first, you know, and I keep doing it. Because we tend to be savers. So it was like, oh yeah, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. That doesn't fit. Don't do this,
Mhm.
you know, and it was really nice. And hopefully what they're saying is true, that they do things for other people. And I loved it. I loved it. I just was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. So I hope that everybody else is in the same.
No, I just, a couple of questions I have is, comparison to what the simple recycling folks, provided for things that they would take.
Mhm.
I know they had, some items that you could put out beyond just the textiles. Is
Right.
the MRK the same?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it said
Yeah,
small
they'll put,
appliances.
out, yeah, and
small
dishes
house
and.
decor,
And
yeah.
lovely, you know, if you have, I mean, you know what's happening right now? I mean, I have grandchildren that, you know, are getting married and they don't want it, they don't want China, they don't want, all that stuff. And it's heartbreaking
Mm.
because that's what, you know, we did. We had all that nice stuff and
Yeah, we
So-
sit in the cabinet, we never,
that's,
Oh, you can't use it.
as a kid, I'd be like, Mom, when can we eat off these plates?
oh, see, I do it all the time. I use it.
Do ya?
I,
That's it.
yeah, I love using it. I love doing that stuff. But, you know, I mean, when I'm gone, they're gonna say, ugh, we don't want this stuff. This
Well,
is
it was
stuff.
interesting. It was brought to our attention that textiles were gonna have to come out of the trash.
That's another thing. That's right,
So-
because that's another not good thing for the trash.
Right, so that was
Absolutely.
something that, you know,
Yeah.
we were wanting to get in the practice of before it was forced upon us.
Right,
So that was a good thing. And Simple Recycling, where they were following originally our trash truck, was perfect because it made it very convenient for people. I put my trash out, I put my pink bag out if I
Yep.
have it,
yep,
and I know what day they're coming.
right,
Unfortunately, things happen and they had to change their routine.
right,
The online scheduling to me, because my family would use it, seemed to work okay.
right,
It's just that you had to remember
Yeah.
when you scheduled it
right,
so that you got it out there because it didn't follow the trash program.
right.
Unfortunately, it's not going to work for the town of Mendon anymore because they don't want to service us.
Well, I think they're running, I think that from what I read about it in the beginning was that they were running, they didn't have enough people.
Yeah.
Correct.
Employees and trucks and stuff.
Exactly.
you
So,
know.
I'm glad that Jack was able to find us another opportunity. And I look forward to working with these people and, what I read as far as being able to box your dishes,
Right, yeah,
bag
right.
your
I was like,
textiles.
so excited.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is really great. This is just what I like. I love all
I
this
like
stuff.
the option of also having the drop-off bins. My only reservation
Yes.
is I don't want them to turn into a dump site.
Right.
Yes.
Well, see, I was thinking that they could be at the A Senior Center, B Highway Department. They have a place there
Mhm.
too. And, maybe even the fire station, because that's a good size area. That's,
Yeah, plenty of space down there.
yeah,
Yeah, because I know sometimes I may fill some bags and I'd like to get rid of them right away.
right.
I
That's
don't
right.
want to
I
look at
agree.
them for a while,
I agree.
but obviously we would have to check with all of those department heads
Right,
and see if it's okay
Right.
with them, if they're comfortable with it.
right.
And then the second thing would be to monitor it, to make sure that they're not,
Just dumping.
Becoming a
everything.
dump site.
Yeah, right,
uh,
right.
I have noticed in my travels around the area towns that it seems the areas that had bins that had been problems in the past don't seem to be problems anymore. So I'm not sure if the installation of cameras or the property owner got after the people that had the bins and said, hey, listen, we're not going to do this anymore unless
Mhm.
they're cleaned and maintained. But I have seen a turnaround. It's very rare now that I go by a bin that is either overflowing or it looks like people have dumped stuff there.
But that's.
Just because,
Yeah,
uh,
it's just trash.
so
right.
Again, I don't know if it's a new practice that people have adopted and
Right.
become a little more responsible.
God knows.
Or if it's the installation of cameras, because cameras are so common now and so easy to install. So I like your suggestions of those 3 sites. And I would say in order to move forward on that, if Jack wants to check with the department heads of those 3 areas, fire, highway, and the senior center.
Mhm.
And at the highway, I would probably only be limited to Saturday mornings
Yep.
where they're open 8 to 12,
Right?
because they probably wouldn't want the public going in and out of there during their working hours.
Yeah, all
Yes,
the
that's,
trucks
that's
and-
problematic,
Right.
right,
But,
correct,
you know, if Alan is okay
Right.
with that,
right,
and that area is monitored by an attendant who does a
Right.
very good job.
right,
So, you know, that might be a way of putting a couple bins there like you suggested, but also keeping it under control.
right. And there used to be bins right across the street, you know where I live?
Yeah.
Right across the street from me, where the Whites own that property. They used to have 2 bins there. And it didn't, it mostly didn't get bad. I mean, sometimes people would leave like things like baby things and stuff that they couldn't fit in there,
Right.
but I would notice that, you know, because sometimes I'd come that way around so that I could get back to my house without getting killed. And I noticed that they would be gone. You
Right.
know, but the other thing that I thought was interesting in this too, this one, little papers, was that there were books as well.
Right.
So, and that's great because the books often get sent like to poor countries and stuff like that. They do, you know, do that. So.
Yeah, the only book bin that I'm aware of is Main Street in Blackstone.
Yes,
there
we
was
used to
one.
have one at the high school.
Yeah,
Up at, well, it was the high school.
yeah, Misco, middle school, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I call it the high school. See, that's what happens. Yeah. And it was the book, it was a book depository, which, you know, I'm a great reader. I love to read. And so I am like getting books in my studio. I always have a little library going back and forth. So then my husband said to me, are you going to get rid of those? And I'm like, I don't know when to get rid of them. So we have them in our barn. You know, it's like, that's like the depository, but not for everybody.
We're all
But,
going to
yeah.
Joyce's.
But I know, I read that they're having they have a book thing too. So I was like, this is perfect. It's everything that I want to get rid of.
Yeah, I think the only thing, and I don't know how you feel about it, is I wonder if we should reach out to a couple towns that they already service,
Okay.
just to get
An idea, because this,
just to,
yeah.
give them a
But you
grade.
know, your point is well taken, because see, like, I'm like this, oh, yeah, that's wonderful. And my husband will say, okay, Pollyanna, what, you know, because I don't tend to believe bad. You know, and I'm always getting whacked in the head. But yeah,
But, you know,
good point, well taken.
Yeah, just a couple of towns, and we may find out, you know, what works for them, what doesn't work for them.
Mhm.
And we
Right.
may find out that,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
the bin part of the program didn't really work,
Yeah,
but the online scheduling worked really well,
yeah,
just to get their opinion.
right. Yeah.
You
I
know,
think that's good because, as I said, I tend to be.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
every town's different, every community
Well,
is different.
Right.
But, you know, if you reached out to, you know, 2 or 3 towns that they already service,
Did Taylor happen to mention, out of curiosity, Jack, particular towns around here that they do service?
did I see
Yeah.
Winthrop in there?
She's in Medfield, North Attleboro, and Norfolk.
Okay.
Those are the closest
Yep.
communities?
And she says she's already has done about 100 calls last year in Mendon alone.
Oh, wow, that's good.
So they've had a presence.
Yes.
Okay,
I think it's obviously the on-call pick up home.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Uh,
Cool.
I will reach out to other surrounding towns.
Yeah, I know right here it says they must have been working with the town of Winthrop. In this article, from the Winthrop Sun transcript on June 9th of 2022. So that's why I thought they worked with Winthrop, because I did read my packet.
Thank you very much for doing your homework.
That book aspect could be very beneficial for the senior center, because they do that book
Right,
event, every year,
Yeah.
and then they always have leftovers.
Right,
Maybe it's a
because that's
different way to.
that's where I bring them sometimes.
Huh?
All right, so a couple of towns.
Yep.
Reach out, see what worked, what didn't work, and we'll go from there.
Okay, I did tell her that most likely in 2 weeks again, when we have our next meeting. She says I am available that date. So hopefully I'll get her on for the next meeting.
All right, sounds like a plan. Next
Any
item
questions on
on the
this?
agenda, unless anybody from the public has questions?
Seeing any hands raised?
Nope, nothing.
Keep forgetting that we have guests.
And I don't know if you were here prior, but Tom Ryder does have a couple of conflicts tonight, so he may be on later in the meeting.
Okay, so do we want to skip the issues that pertain to Tom, which would be agenda item 3 and 4? We can hold off on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll skip
Come back
down to
around.
item number 5, our rooster noise nuisance follow-up.
Yeah.
Tom, you want to take this one? I know you
Sure.
played a big part in trying to get this one straightened out.
Okay,
So what Jack had just presented to you is the a cease and desist letter.
right, I got it in my package.
Okay,
So I
great.
did, I read it over, yes, so I'm
Um,
familiar with it.
So the outline in the letter basically was that from the board's perspective, we deemed the situation a nuisance that was creating a problem in the neighborhood. And we put forth, based on past conversations with the Agricultural Commission, the need to do something about the housing of the rooster.
Mhm.
And as you probably saw, we basically followed their recommendation to simply say, you're gonna need to house this rooster in such a fashion in a noise reduction environment, noise and light actually, between the hours of 7 PM and 7 AM.
Right.
Because the issue has been consistently the early morning element, 4:30, 4:05, maybe even before 4:30, but
Right,
that seems to be the constant time when the rooster's kind of making his presence known.
right,
And it does create a problem for residents who is maybe just simply trying to enjoy a little peace and quiet
Well,
that early in the
if
morning.
you have small children, I mean, that's another thing that
Yep.
it's problematic if the kids wake up. That's,
A little bit sooner than you'd want them to.
yes, right,
Yeah.
before 7.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and it seemed very, I thought it was a good solution. I read the whole thing to keep it in its, I had chickens. If, that long path that goes to the street. Well, that's where my studio, my quilting studio is now, but it used to be my chicken coop.
Oh, okay.
So I had chickens.
Yep.
And I had roosters, somebody gave me roosters but I gave them to Mr. White, who was my guy who took chickens when they stopped laying because they're a pain. They are a pain. And people would say to me, which I thought was so funny, well, how are you getting your eggs? Where do you get your eggs if you don't have a rooster? I'm like, hello?
Well, I personally think what this gentleman is trying to do, if I understand it correctly, he's trying to provide his family with their own chicken. So that's why he needs the rooster to fertilize the eggs.
But that's true, but the solution seems to me.
Oh, absolutely,
No, I
absolutely.
was
Right.
gonna say, for the benefit of those who are listening, who haven't actually seen the document, it is a public document. Would there be a benefit in reading this document for those who are listening
Sure.
to read?
Yeah,
through it?
why not?
So,
Sure.
okay. So for those who are listening. Hello. So for those who are listening, what I'll do is I'm going to read this cease and desist letter that was hand delivered to the premises to 18B Neck Hill Road. It was by myself and Jack, our health administrator. At the time we made the visit, unfortunately, there was nobody at home, so the letter was left posted at the front door of the residence. So this goes to the attention of Mr. Picallo and Ms. Simoes. The Board of Health has received numerous complaints regarding the rooster noise emanating from the property at 18B Neck Hill Road. It is our understanding that in the past few months, you have reduced the number of roosters originally situated at 18B Neck Hill Road, and that currently only one rooster exists. Although we do appreciate your attempt to mitigate the noise issue, residents are still complaining about the consistent early morning crowing that takes place from the one rooster on the property. After visiting 18B Neck Hill Road on July 8, 2022, we had a very nice visit with Elizabeth, and we had the opportunity to assess the environment for the rooster and hens. Elizabeth is one of the occupants of 18B Neck Hill Road. The environment was well maintained and we had no issues regarding the care of these animals. Our animal inspector had left contact information expecting a follow-up call from Edmar, who's a gentleman at 18B Neck Hill, which has not occurred. Our goal is to provide you some additional guidance on how to mitigate the noise issue, which the Board of Health has deemed to be a nuisance. Under Massachusetts General Law, MGL Section 122 and 123, a Board of Health is granted the authority to address any situation that is deemed, in the opinion of the board, to be a nuisance. A nuisance can apply to many different elements, which may, in the opinion of the board, be injurious to the public health and welfare of inhabitants in the town. In this case, the consistent early morning crowing of your rooster has created inconvenience and discomfort and has caused interference in the use and enjoyment of neighbors' property. In consultation with the Agricultural Commission, the following recommendation has been put forth to mitigate the nuisance of the rooster crowing in the early morning hours. Between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., the rooster must be kept in a fully enclosed structure/coop designed to minimize noise and light. This directive from the Board of Health to modify the housing of your rooster must take place immediately. If by Wednesday, August 10th, 2022, you have not made the housing adjustments for your rooster and noise complaints continue to come through to the Board of Health, the board will take further action, which could include the removal or destruction of the nuisance. You may request a hearing before the Mendon Board of Health by filing a written petition to the board within 7 days of receipt of this order. At this hearing, you will be given an opportunity to be heard and to present witnesses and documentary evidence as to why this order should be modified or withdrawn. An attorney may represent you. You have the right to Holly. You have the right to inspect and obtain copies of all relevant documents relating to this matter from the Mendon Board of Health at 18 Main Street, Mendon, Mass, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Any adverse party has the right to appear at the hearing. Sincerely, and I signed the letter, Mendon Board of Health member. So that's what was presented to the occupants. Now, I understand since then, we still have issues.
Yes, we do.
We probably have folks on that may still be experiencing some of the noise that's happening. And so I will, at this point, turn to either, I see we have Richard on and we have Ann on. If either of you would like to comment or add anything, feel free to raise your hand and we'll, looks like Ann has her mic open. So
Yeah.
Ann?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for reading that letter. Unfortunately, I've been keeping track every morning since the letter was given, and nothing has changed. On August 8th, the crowing started at 4:59 a.m. The next day, August 9th, it was 5:12 a.m. And this morning it started at 4:45 a.m. Now the rooster crows for about 5 minutes, then stops, then 10 minutes later starts again. So it's off and on anywhere from 4:30 a.m. right until 7. So the nuisance has not disappeared since you left the letter, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I appreciate all that you're doing because, as you know, mentioned earlier, this has been going on for a year now with this noise nuisance. Before it was all day long and into the night, but now it's just really still early, very early in the morning. And our bedroom window happens to face that property, so we can hear it loud and clear, even with 3 fans going.
Okay. I know we have Richard on as well. I don't know if Richard, if you had any anything to add or not? Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so situation still the same. So,
We got Brendan Chanel on with his hand up.
oh, here we go. Hello, Brendan.
Hello, thank you for reading the letter. Just a quick question on that situation. Sounds like it hasn't really changed. Has anyone visually confirmed if any changes were made or are underway to the coop?
I have not personally been back since delivering the letter myself. And so I would say no, no one has actually visited since delivery of the letter.
It
But that's a good-
doesn't, sorry, it doesn't appear that anything's changed. I mean, it's a plastic coupe. So, I mean, when I drive by, I can't really notice any changes, but the front entry is open all the time. So it's not like I mean, I don't know about early in the morning, but I know when I drive by there, it still looks like it's just a plastic coupe, plastic siding, I should say.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
chain link type of small shed shape type of an element. And with this plastic draping that I know is on the top, comes down the side, but the front, in a lot of cases is open, exposed. And of course, hasn't been sufficient enough to take away the noise issue because we're looking for them to confine that rooster in such a manner that it would reduce the noise and the light, which reducing the noise, reducing the light in effect should have the effect, we believe, to mitigate the crowing from the roosters.
Yeah, I was there one morning, shortly after 6 o'clock in the morning. Jack had told me that he had got another complaint. And my horses are not too far from that home, so I did observe. It almost reminds me of almost one of those portable dog kennels
Exactly.
that, comes in 6 foot by 6 foot panels, and you put 4 of them together with a gate.
Yep.
And it's, easily movable.
Around.
Because it's not actually in the ground.
Yeah.
And I saw the gate was wide open from the street. I was actually parked just in front of the 2 mailboxes. And that's what brought to my attention that it was a 2-family home. And then Jack tracked down the fact that the occupants and the owner of the property are 2 different people. So the owner of the property has also been made aware of what's going on there, correct?
Well, so actually, originally, I had the thought that we would notify the owner as well. But what I wanted to do was to give the opportunity for the occupants of the property to make an adjustment, to make the correction that we put forth without actually involving the owners. But at this point, I think since there's been no response, the situation appears to not have changed, but Brendan raises a good point. Should probably do a visual verification from our perspective and just make sure that things are the same or if there is any
The other
change.
thing is that I know this sounds kind of crazy, but the thing that they could do, because this seems like almost like a toy situation with that it's like a toy structure, but they could take the rooster down into the cellar and put him in a cage down.
A dog crate.
And that would be just, and then at 7 o'clock, let them out.
Let 'em out.
And 7 o'clock at night, bring them back in.
Yeah, I think unfortunately right now, we're all
Stuck,
through
yeah.
this whole investigation, if you want to call it that, with the animal inspector visiting and trying to give the suggestions that the ag committee has proposed. There's been no response from the owner.
Right.
Well, I
And
think
again,
the one thing they did do is they reduced the number because
Right.
they did have multiple roosters. So, and I wanted to reference that, an appreciation for doing that, but nonetheless, you still have an issue with the one. On the visit that I made with our animal inspector, the element of the housing didn't come up in that conversation. What did come up was he talked about a crow collar, which is something that could be put onto the rooster that mitigates the crow, the rooster from crowing, the muscles expanding to get the
Right.
crow as loud. I know we have folks on who have chickens and have the experience. That, I don't know if that's deemed to be not such a pleasant thing for
About
the
rooster.
animal.
Yeah.
So, and so in that discussion, the housing piece didn't come up because the person we spoke with had mentioned that it was the other individual, the other gentleman who actually has this as the hobby. And so she didn't really seem to have as much involvement, so to speak, but we didn't
Is that
challenge that.
Elizabeth?
That would be Elizabeth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the woman we spoke with. And so the expectation or the hope was in leaving the card, we left contact information for Danielle, that the gentleman, Edmar, would respond, and then the communication would have been, to have offered out what we put in the letter.
We have
Yes.
Brendan with his hand up and Ellen after Brendan.
Okay.
Brendan?
Yeah, I just wanted to corroborate that. So I've had chickens for probably 7 to 8 years. Just wanted to corroborate that the basically the standard of care is to have an enclosed coop anyway for the winter. My coop, I have a light sensor, so it opens and closes its door based on the light, and you can also do it on a timer. But when the rooster's in there and it's dark, he won't be crowing. I think most people that have chickens have an enclosed coop already. Just a comment.
Yeah, okay.
Ellen?
Hi, I wanted to thank the Board of Health, first of all, and say you guys are doing an awesome job. And I've been with this and the problem right from the beginning and have been following it. So, but it dawned on me, it made me think this evening that all of the letters, and we haven't spoken directly to him, I believe. We've only talked to his wife, but I'm wondering if there's a language barrier here that he may not understand what's being said to him or in the letter. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, could that be an issue here? That he really just doesn't understand literally what he's being asked to do?
No, that's a good point. And after our meeting with Elizabeth, I don't know what nationality she is, but she does have a different accent, if you will.
Right. So
she-
that was my thoughts this evening, that there may be an issue if he's not responding to anything that's been written to him. It might be that he really has an issue here. So I don't know what can be done about that, but I don't know. Just a thought.
No, it's a good point. I will say the communication with Elizabeth, there didn't seem to be an understanding issue, at least from Elizabeth's perspective. In the communication we were having, she understood, why we were there and the discussions we were having. But
Okay.
I wouldn't want to jump to the conclusion because it's a valid point. I don't know if the other gentleman, where his abilities are with the, English
Right.
and
But
understanding
then
the written
even
word.
if he does have, I guess even if he does have a language barrier, you would think that he would contact someone at the town hall with regards to what's going on. But my bottom line is, I mean, he's been contacted over an entire year, multiple times. And so I
Yeah.
think you guys are doing a great job with what's being done and the process and the conclusion that it looks like it's going to come to. So I just want to say thank you. I think you're handling it very well.
All right, well, I appreciate that. So Ellen, out of curiosity, had either yourself or I know, was it Zach?
Yeah.
Yeah, had anyone, do we know of anyone who had actually spoken to the gentleman directly in any of the past communications?
No one has spoken directly to the gentleman.
So it's
That's
always been the woman.
Yes. And she always says he's away or at work or he's not available for every contact that everyone has tried to make. So that's what I know, what was brought to my mind this evening. So that's kind of a unique situation. So.
Well, and it's a valid point. I mean, we have addressed the letter to both individuals. And I would say from my interaction with the woman there did not appear to be a language barrier
And
in
she-
understanding.
if we speak that she's if she's living with him, she speaks the same language that he
Right.
speaks.
Right.
And she could be the interpreter, it would seem to me.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, I
Right.
agree.
Right.
Okay, that was my 2 cents.
You know,
Okay, no, thank you.
Sometimes people from another country, though, are fearful of interacting with the law.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe if we say to her, when is he going to be here? We need to meet with him. And, or otherwise, we're gonna take the rooster away. Is that what we're gonna do? Will we physically take the rooster? I don't
Well,
know. That's it. I don't know.
so there.
How does that work? You know?
Right, and therein lies where the discussion now goes to. We have put forth the letter.
Right.
We've issued what requirement is. We've had no response. What should we do now for advancing? Or do we want to consider another opportunity to make direct contact and I guess quote unquote, spell it out for either Elizabeth or hopefully Edmar, but in order to get to him, we're probably going to have to be there in odd hours,
Right.
the
Which,
evening or.
I wouldn't mind doing that because, I mean, I know people, I've worked with people and they become fearful. They're afraid. They've lived in a country where it may have been,
Oh, sure.
very military or very, whatever. So I don't mind doing that. And if we wanted to make an appointment, and go sometime, I would mind.
Yeah, the only thing that I noticed, because I actually visited the house that
Oh, that's
day
right, yeah.
more than once. I believe he drives a black Dodge pickup truck. I'm pretty sure it was definitely black. I'm pretty sure it was a Dodge. And I think he leaves for work a little bit before 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
Because like I said, that morning I had made 2 stops there.
Right,
Because I didn't want to just knock on the door at that hour.
right,
I was trying to catch him on his way to work,
right,
just to get his attention
correct.
that we need to
Yes,
have a
he-
talk
right.
when you returning.
Yeah,
Didn't want to make him late for work or anything like that, but just that we need to communicate. I've only worked with one gentleman that had the name Edmar and he came from somewhere in South America.
yeah.
So, I mean, do we want to convert the letter to Spanish?
Or Portuguese,
Yeah, I mean, would that be helpful? I mean, both of them are similar.
right, yes, yeah,
I mean, do we give it one more shot that way? But I have to agree that the woman that he lives with, you would
should be
think
translating, yeah,
if they live under the same roof, they're able to communicate.
right.
You would think that he would not only be able to communicate with her, but trust whatever
What
she
she's saying,
says,
yeah,
as to what's going
Right.
on. I mean, there's no reason for her to misguide him
right,
when she translates the letter if he can't read it himself.
right.
And I mean, how long do we let this go on?
Well-
If I may say something,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
with Ellen saying it's been over a year on this property for this rooster problem. Yeah, they mitigated some of the roosters. Now it's only down to one. I think it's time to bring in the owner of the property.
Very good point.
Maybe the owner of the property does not know there's
Right.
roosters and chickens on the
Right,
property.
do
He
we
may
know who
be
that is?
accepting a rent check.
We do.
And happy to receive the rent check,
Right.
everything's hunky dory.
Right,
Where may he be like, you know what, this has been going on my property? I
right,
don't want it on my property. You may rent from me, but I do not allow chickens or roosters
Right.
on my property.
right,
That's a good point.
Well, I mean, ultimately, the property owner sort of absorbs some of this responsibility
Right.
absolutely,
because,
I was trying to give a little extra,
Good faith.
consideration.
kindness or consideration.
Right,
Just not
Oh,
to
no,
bring,
absolutely.
not knowing the relationship between the owner and the tenants
right,
sometimes.
right,
if
we're
you
not
bring an
trying to get
owner in,
No,
It might be all you
tenant in
need.
Dutch.
Yeah, it might be, and all of a sudden you're creating another situation which
That-
Right.
yeah,
and I
where
know that
where
they have
lose their
children,
house,
there's
yeah.
children on the premises as well, at
Right.
least one child.
Mhm.
So I was trying to give consideration for having them
Mhm.
respond and make
Right.
the necessary adjustments, but,
Right, I respect that. I think that's kind.
I'm all in favor of I'd rather make, if anything, a next step, not a letter, an actual visit again. I'd rather I'd rather try to make the attempt at a face-to-face and have that conversation again. Ideally with the other gentleman, but at least with Elizabeth,
Right,
and say,
Yeah,
A,
this is a very
confirm, did
serious-
you get
Right.
this?
right,
And, if you didn't, this is what was delivered. Do you
Right.
understand
right.
everything that's in there?
Exactly, yeah.
Type of a situation and
And
get,
this is serious. This is a
Oh.
serious situation
absolutely.
now.
oh, yeah,
She has to know that this is a serious thing
yeah.
because she's at risk of even losing her apartment. even.
Well, yeah, if the,
That,
if the homeowner,
Because if you bring the
Yeah.
owner in and they
Right.
had no idea, like Jack said, and it's like, wait a minute, I didn't authorize any,
Yeah.
chickens or roosters on my property. We can't have this. And so, yeah,
we're trying to help him do what he wants to do.
Right,
no, I know.
and I'd be happy to go with you,
Oh, okay,
you
yeah.
know, I would.
Well,
I mean,
are we gonna get ourselves, how many members can go, before we are in
Oh,
question or
so,
violation of the open meeting law? I mean, we've had these
Oh, yeah.
discussions before because
yeah,
Tom and I talked about going,
right,
just so that there's another Board of Health member or representative
Correct.
present,
right,
not to intimidate
Right.
or anything else,
Right.
but just to not put it on just one member.
right.
So, but we run into issues as to whether or not,
I think, now, Jack, you will hear what I have to say and say, no. I think that at an open meeting, we are discussing that we are going to make a visit. We are not having a meeting there. We are having a visit. So that, in my thinking,
it's not
my
deliberating.
little peep brain says that's
Okay.
not an open, that's not, we're not, acting in, against the open meeting law.
Right.
That- I
right,
mean,
there's no decisions would be made.
No, we're not
Okay,
making a
so-
decision. We're having a discussion to try to help these people to understand that they are putting themselves at a risk, that we don't want to be responsible for that. We want them to be able to still have their chickens,
Mhm.
but they have to put that rooster in hiding and get him to not be crowing all
In
night.
addition,
That,
You know?
you sold me.
Yeah,
in addition to helping not only the occupants comply,
but the neighbors.
the bigger issue is these folks who are experiencing the problem
Correct.
and I think are entitled to
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
some
Right.
movement on the
Right.
issue, right?
Yeah, it makes you very cranky when you're not sleeping.
Yep.
I hate.
No, and,
I get it.
you know,
Yeah.
as Tom has pointed out, we're all entitled to enjoyment of our property.
Correct.
And this has obviously interfered with that.
Yep.
So, no, I like your argument. I can follow that, and I guess, because of, different things
Oh, I
that
know.
we've,
Right.
experienced in town, my awareness and my concern to try to follow along is a little heightened.
Mhm,
Right.
yeah.
In the past, we've always been conscious of it,
Yeah.
but we obviously want to make sure we comply. So that's the only reason that I was
Right.
bringing that up.
And for those on the call who may not know, and there are some on the call who might, what we were kind of discussing here has to do with open meeting law in the state of Massachusetts and what it means for, board members to have discussions. Essentially, at least as I understand it, you're not supposed to have amongst the quorum of a board any kind of deliberation even, doesn't even have to be a vote, but any kind of deliberation that would normally go before the public on an issue, which does make trying to resolve issues very difficult because there's obviously no intent here to keep anything from the public, but sometimes it's very difficult to go meeting to meeting and not converse to try to advance resolution on a problem.
Well, especially when you only meet twice a month.
Yeah.
Right.
So the wheels turn very slow if, you know, something pops in your head and you can't run it by a member,
Right.
Right,
but then there is a differentiation there too, because running something by a member and deliberating a situation,
Right.
they are two different things.
correct.
And I think there's such a thing, to Joyce's point, the spirit of the law. We would not be in violation of the spirit of what the open meeting law is supposed to be about, because we're not trying to have any conversations
Right.
outside of,
Decisions
Correct.
about what's happening. What we're doing is
Right.
we are trying to make sure that the person with whom we are dealing
Right.
has a perfect understanding of what the laws are.
Right.
And that we are the ones that have to enforce the laws.
Yep.
So we're here to explain to you what that means.
Mhm.
And then when we go back and talk to our board, we have to say, yes, they're still not doing it, so we have to get rid of that rooster.
Yeah.
You have to make, now, then we have to
Do that at a
deliberate.
meeting. Yeah,
Right.
that
So
we have to do at a meeting.
Do
Yeah.
we want to set an approximate window of time that we're going to accomplish that?
Well, I'd like to try to go back potentially tomorrow or Friday.
Sure,
You know, if it's you have the availability, we can maybe set a time.
right. I know I can't do anything early in the morning.
Yeah.
I have another appointment that I have to do, that I'm working for the hospital golf tournament thing. So I have to do that one thing in the morning, but I can do anything after that.
Yeah. Afternoons are generally midday or after. I work, my other job,
Yeah,
keeps me busy in the evenings.
right.
So I actually kind of sleep in a little bit in the
Good.
morning,
Yep.
as Jack will attest to. If
That's good. Well, I'm
so that-
I'm in favor of that.
that
So,
works, then we would try to,
yeah,
try to get somebody's, at least get to Elizabeth.
right. And maybe afternoon time then? How-
Yep.
That work for you? That
Yep.
works for me. And that, my thing is gonna take not too long in the morning, but
Okay.
that would be fine. I'd like that. And I don't mind doing that.
I'm going to guess where I sort of missed this gentleman leaving for work, that he probably, I'm going to make the assumption that he works either a 7 to 3 or an 8 to 4 shift.
Right.
That's what I'm going to assume.
So
You know.
then perhaps, excuse me.
Actually, I have seen the truck there in the afternoon sometimes, so I don't know what his hours are. But that day that you were there on July 8th, 2022, I happened to go by his house that afternoon. I was on my way to a bike ride, and he was in his yard. He was in back there with the chickens and the roosters. So I don't know if he just, doesn't come out, or, but his truck is there sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes it isn't. It's intermittent.
So like around the 4 o'clock hour, Ann, or something around, is that what you're saying? Four-
Yeah, that time I drove by, it was like 3:30, but
Mhm.
it was the same day that you guys had visited him. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe, maybe later after 5, you might catch him, but he is there, and for a whole year, his truck was there even I mean, right after COVID, he was, he was there all the time, because we can see their driveway from our kitchen window. So that truck is there quite a bit, so.
I'd even be
Hopefully,
open to
yeah.
like a later afternoon visit if
Sure.
you,
We can
Yeah,
try
that might be better.
And then certainly, maybe the first visit, we won't see him, but hopefully if we talk to Elizabeth and say to her, when is he going to be here? Because we really need to talk to him. This is very serious.
well, and also too, I think there's some, in addition, there is some responsibility on her part.
Correct.
So
yes.
if he's thinking, and I don't want to assume here, but if he's thinking the issue here is if there's a MO here to avoid,
Right,
it's not going to work.
right. Yeah, yeah,
So, but I would impress that upon Elizabeth. And at a point, with this visit, this may or may not also possibly now involve wanting to, as Jack suggested, involving the owner of the property. Because now if we're not getting satisfaction, then the owner should be notified to make them aware of an action that's taking place by a Board of Health in the town of Mendon. And then in addition to, I mean, this was a letter, but now a physical enforcement action that may take place on your property. On top of that, which would probably, if it came to the removal, I think at that point, we're probably involving a constable in the
Oh, yeah.
process. We'd have to
Well,
have a,
I think that, I think that it's important for, again, because we're not sure about language barriers and stuff like that, to make our first visit and to be very clear that these are the things that are going, this is how it's going to work. If you don't do this, we're going to have to notify the owner of this place, and because things, you're not doing what everybody wants.
right.
I mean, it just, you know, to be perfectly open and, not to be, so that they are very sure
Mhm.
that this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and there are solutions where we've offered solutions to you and
Mhm.
bring them into your bedroom. If you like the sound, just,
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so that's,
So we
that
have a
should take care
plan
of
of
that.
action. Does anyone who's on the call have anything additional to add or to comment on? Any thoughts, suggestions?
Just the fact that they never responded to you with a letter and even with the visit. I don't think they're considerate. I think they're, my personal opinion is they want to do what they want to do, regardless of what their neighbors like or dislike. So if we have to wait another month of this crowing at 4:30 in the morning, I just don't think it's fair to the neighbors. But I support what you guys do. And appreciate all that you've done for us. But I think you guys are being really giving them the benefit of the doubt, because I just don't see it happening. They haven't responded to anything. They're totally inconsiderate. They let this go on for a year now. They don't care. They don't care about their neighbors. They just do whatever they want. So that's my 2 cents. I'll stop
Well,
before I get in trouble.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
I just want to make it perfectly clear. This is my first night here but the only thing I did hear was that they did have a lot of roosters and they did do something. They did get rid of all of them but one.
Right.
So, and maybe they thought, well, that would be enough and they didn't get the picture. But in my opinion, without waiting another 2 weeks, we could, in fact, can't we have an emergency meeting? If they're not doing that, can't we call an emergency meeting, put it out?
Oh, yeah.
And then, so it's not that long anymore and say, look, this is what's happening. This is the ultimatum. We want you to know it's perfectly clear
Yep.
that this is what's going to happen. We have been very good to you. We've blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, the only last thing that I can think of is if there happen to be a police officer on duty at that particular time
Mhm.
that may be bilingual, if you needed assistance
Mhm.
with communicating to make sure that the message is getting across, that might be something to kind of check on to see if you had that at your disposal.
Right.
If necessary, not that you want that person to come as a police officer, but you want that person to come as a translator.
Well, I know,
Throwing it
unfortunately,
out there.
once they see the
Yeah,
uniform,
that's.
they're not thinking,
that's the-
they're not thinking translation, they're
Right.
thinking, uh-oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to say is necessarily a bad thing, but I didn't want to,
The fear thing.
we.
Right, yeah, definitely not trying to intimidate anybody,
Correct.
but there's got to be a way of getting the message
Well,
across that you need to comply.
If they're Spanish speaking, I do know some people that are Spanish speaking and could be interpreting if push comes to shove.
Well, again, Elizabeth,
Let's do our first thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elizabeth as an individual had no problem understanding us, and we had no problem understanding her. It was a very good conversation, and there was no communication issues
right.
experience from either side when
So she
myself. and-
could be the interpreter, really, you know, let's
Exactly.
face it.
If,
you know,
yeah, if one is
If she,
needed.
we can get her
I
there.
mean, there's no
and we
reason,
get
you
three
can't ask the
different-
question, does
Yeah.
Emma have a problem understanding the English language? Is there a
Right,
communication
right.
barrier?
Yeah, you would have thought, we're departing, and again, I maybe should assume.
Yeah.
That would have come up when we offered, or gave them, or Danielle gave the card and said, could you please have Edmar give me a call? And
Right.
she took the
I-
card and, yep, no problem, and.
Right,
She could have said right then and there, well, he doesn't speak very good English.
right, yes, yeah,
Right.
then we'll need to have.
But a lot
someone-
of times I've found that people that have a hard time speaking English don't have a hard time understanding it.
Right,
It's just when they have to speak,
right,
putting the words in the correct order
Yes, yeah,
is what seems to take longer
right.
than understanding what someone who is speaking only English, what it means.
Yep.
Again, we're doing everything we can to try to
Absolutely,
resolve
yeah.
this amicably.
As a note, for you folks and for the folks listening, I did also have a follow-up call, or I had a follow-up reach out to, Michael, Hugo. Now, he's a gentleman I had mentioned before in a past meeting. Mike Hugo is, he's a JD, he's a juris doctorate, with the, Mass Association of Health Boards, who you may be familiar with.
Mhm.
It's an agency in Massachusetts that exists to help local boards of health with guidance on their authoritative abilities and what they can do and the directions they should go in. So I did reach out to Michael today via email, and I presented him basically the whole outline of what's transpired, because we had an initial conversation about this before the last meeting. And then I also included the cease and desist letter so we could see exactly what was put out to them. Unfortunately, I got back an auto reply. He's away this week,
Oh,
and so he wouldn't be back available until next week.
Right.
But the reach out was there, and
Right.
he was very, very helpful. And he had actually confirmed when we were talking about what direction we can go in. He validated that the direction that we're going in is there. There's precedence for it in case law to treat this as a nuisance, and
right,
the rights of neighbors in the neighborhood have a right to enjoyment and to enjoy their properties. And if you have something that exists that prevents that from happening, if the board deemed it so, it could be deemed a nuisance, and then the board has the authority to take the actions. And that's why those MGLs were cited,
right,
because
right,
those are the guidelines that we have.
right,
operate.
exactly.
All right, just to close this out,
Yep.
I'm on board with another home visit
Okay.
Thursday or Friday. And I would make myself available for an emergency meeting if we needed to call one
Yep.
to try to get this resolved.
To
Keep it
bed,
rolling.
put to bed.
The only other thing I can offer is I may have someone that would take the rooster. I know they've taken old hens in the past,
Yeah.
so they may be interested in a uncooperative rooster.
That's actually something I like to throw out, since we have, Ellen, particularly on the call, Ellen. If it were, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate here. If it were to come to a situation where we saw no other alternative but to take the rooster, are you aware of opportunities out there as to where we could place that rooster after we take control of it?
Not offhand. I don't. So, I don't know, but I could reach out to other members of the AgCom and see if they have any, but me personally, I don't know, but I could certainly reach out to the other board members and find out what they suggest and get back to you guys through email.
A place that came up in conversation, and Jack, you and I were talking about it, up the road on North Ave is Maple Farm
Oh,
Sanctuary.
yes, yeah.
Would they possibly
Yeah,
be?
They would, I'm sure they would, yeah.
Yeah, they would take it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that could be, all right, I was just trying to
Yeah.
think things
Let
out.
us loose.
I'm always thinking food.
What's that?
Sorry.
too.
What'd you say?
I was thinking.
Oh.
Chicken soup.
All right.
Sounds good.
Pardon me. Okay,
So thank you all for, participating, and we're gonna continue to move forward and try to bring this to resolution.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
I
Very
do-
welcome.
Thank
I
you
do-
all.
All righty,
I do just want to mention, Tom Ryder just texted me, he will be on soon.
excellent.
awesome.
So do we want to go to number 6,
Sure.
dumpster regulation follow-up? We all have the dumpster regulations.
Again, Daniel Marksman, who works for the Blackstone Valley Partnership Program. We're in with 8 other towns. And he has a long title, but he's done dumpster regulations for the surrounding towns. He's done it for Blackstone,
Yes.
he's done it for Northbridge, he's done it for Hopedale. So now he's designing them for the town of Mendon.
Right, and I think he drew from the town of Reading. I think he's from that area.
I believe so, yes.
I actually have his card. He does have a lot of
He has a
qualifications.
lot of credentials.
Yeah, Regional Health Inspector. This is an organization that Missy got us involved with.
Uh-huh.
So we're able to, we have Danielle and Daniel that we're able to lean on if we have an issue and our on-staff people aren't available.
Right.
So they've been instrumental in trying to get us
Help.
keep the wheels turning in the
Right.
absence of,
Right.
like, we need to hire an animal inspector.
And they're
Alright.
knowledgeable.
Right, oh, very
Very
knowledgeable.
Oh, very knowledgeable.
Right, yeah.
So
Which is helpful.
they've been great. We do have dumpster regulations drafted.
Yes,
I believe they were about 99% complete. There were
Yep.
just a couple items in the red column.
correct.
I think the only question that I had that I need a little clarification on is whether or not, and I've asked this before and maybe I just haven't heard the answer. We're talking about dumpsters, all dumpsters,
Mhm.
or we're just talking about temporary dumpsters, like the dumpster you hire when you're gonna clean out your basement or when you're gonna put on an addition.
Well, so to narrow down the focus and for folks that are still on, what we're talking about is dumpster regulations that apply residentially, correct? We're not, so that's part of the question, right? So are we looking to incorporate these regulations to incorporate all dumpster usage, including businesses? Or are we, is the concern here with regard to residential usage? Because that seems to probably be the area of most contention when dumpsters are being used, but I
Yeah.
don't want to assume.
Not all the time, and if, when I read the regulations, when it talks about, to be placed not in the sight of traffic and to be shielded from other properties, like with a fence.
Yes.
And we have had issues with dumpsters that are commercial dumpsters where maybe the staff didn't close the lid and we had a windstorm and the next thing you know, trash from their establishment is
All over
10 or
the
12 houses down the road.
I can cite the perfect example of that one, because that happened a few
Yeah,
years
so
back.
we've-
and- Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Across the street.
Up at the airport area there.
yeah,
Um,
so
yeah.
personally,
Emerson,
I feel if we're gonna do dumpster regulations, they
across the
should
board.
probably cover everybody.
Right,
The only thing that I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to cause somebody who already has a dumpster, and I'm probably talking more businesses,
Right.
to have to relocate their dumpster because of the regulations that we pass,
Yeah,
or to have to modify something, whether it be fencing it in, when that's never been an issue. So I just want to be just a little conscious of that. Not that I want to grandfather anybody, but I certainly wouldn't want to cause a business to have to relocate a dumpster. A lot of times what I've found is when someone is, let's say, building a new building. All right, we'll take Bill Ambasino building his office building.
right.
Usually when they go before the other boards, they show where the dumpster's gonna be. and it gets reviewed and approved.
As part of that plan.
Right. So it doesn't even come to the Board of Health because it's all done in zoning and planning and building as to where that dumpster is gonna be.
You raise an interesting aspect there, though, with regard to now, if we were to now get involved and create regulations, how does that potentially conflict with what already exists in other areas of government or guidance?
Do we know where the dumpsters are at the moment? Any and every dumpster is?
Currently, no.
Probably the only way we would know is to do a physical visit.
Yeah,
But again, if that would mean that when someone was proposing doing a renovation or building a new establishment, as it would swing through the process at town
Right.
hall, it would swing through Board of Health, and Board of Health would look and say, oh yeah, oh, they got it fenced in, so if someone forgot to open forget to close the lids, the
right,
trash will be contained, okay, that'll work.
right.
Again, I wouldn't want to cause anybody that is already operating in town, and I guess I'm more or less talking about businesses, to have to relocate their dumpster on their property unless it were a definite hazard.
Sure.
Because we talk about, in the dumpster regulations, we talk about, the location of the dumpster. It has to be on a level, hard surface. It has to be, not in the sight of traffic, which I'm gonna say that I don't think there's any dumpster that I've come across driving around town in the last 30 years would violate that.
I would agree.
I know the dumpsters behind the Hood Plaza maybe aren't perfectly level, but they're all in that back alley.
Yeah, on the one side there.
And they get dumped regularly. They're attended to regularly, right?
If I
So-
may interject, Tom Ryder is online if we want to get him out of the way and get back to dumpster regulations.
I'm good with that.
Tom Ryder?
Yes,
All right, we're gonna start with you now again.
I apologize. And I was having trouble logging into my computer. I had to change to a different computer.
Not a problem.
Yeah, no worries, Tom, just so you know, we have a new member of the Board of Health, Joyce Gilmore, who has a long history with the Board of Health, many, many years ago, when she was only 2 years old or 3 years old, as she's let us know. She started young, but she brings a lot of knowledge with her. She's got a education in environmental science. And she did some classes up at Clark back in the day, when she was first starting out learning about Board of Health and the laws that govern the Board of Health. So we did, at the beginning of our meeting, welcome her aboard. She's gonna get us through to the next election at least. So we appreciate her commitment. So now that I've said all that, Tom, take it away.
All right, well, it's nice to meet you, Joyce.
Nice meeting
Thank
as
you.
well.
Yes, so there are 2 local upgrades tonight. And one is on 8 Rod Road. Civil Site Engineering has designed a system, and due to the constraints, the local upgrade request is to have the repair less than 20 feet from the foundation. So the soil absorption system is going to be less than 20. It's going to be 18 and a half. And the site constraints is going to be a problem. So the local upgrade, I mentioned in my memo that should be approved. And it is a repair. They are in public water in this location. One of the few areas.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Where is 8 Rod Road?
Up on the, past,
Yeah, was it?
if you're going,
Is it Mohawk Motors on Route 16? That little gas station that sells some cars and does some repairs?
Ah, okay,
Just after that on the left going towards Hopedale,
okay,
the road is 8 rods long, in
Oh.
case you were asking.
right,
okay.
A rod is 16.5 feet, so.
Here we go.
So the other is, just an alternate to perk test, due to the constraints of the water table. They were not able to do the percolation test, and, actually, this one was actually due to 63 Northbridge Road. Actually, it was due to problems doing the perk. It was very deep. That was the problem. And Eric from Civil Solutions has designed the system, and it meets all the conditions for alternate to perk. So that was approved as well.
So that's a repair.
It is a repair, yes.
Right, yeah, right.
Right, but it's an entire system though, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I see on this one, Tom, it's noted as the SAS are trenches.
Trenches, yeah,
This is 63 Northbridge.
Yeah,
right. On page 1 of 4.
yeah, item number 6.
yeah, bear with me a second. It's a field.
Says trenches on our paperwork.
Oh,
Yeah,
did I put trenches on that in my memo?
uh,
First page, section A, line 6.
Right.
yeah, the memo itself doesn't reflect anything about trenches.
Okay.
Your memo?
First page in the application.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the
Section
application,
A, line 6.
first page, facility information.
Okay, they must have typed out. I didn't remember seeing trenches, so. For 63 Northbridge.
Yeah,
63 Northbridge, yeah. What do you have that as being, that answer?
I have it as well, I can't open it up for some reason right now. Not letting me. Yeah, so.
I just never seen that listed before.
Oh, here it is. So,
Bring back good memories for you, Joyce.
hmm. They had a failure, they must have had a failure, so.
Yeah.
Could the trenches refer to the fact that it was a conventional system when it was built, so they're telling us what was there?
yeah, I'm looking for what that document that you're saying. I don't see it.
It says, Form 9A.
Oh, on the Form 9A, okay.
I'm thinking trenches is what is presently there.
Yeah,
not
because
what is-
on his
not
application,
what
he
is
has
proposed.
a field.
Yeah, so the trenches refer to what is there now existing.
Yeah. Yeah, yes,
And they're gonna put a complete
Um,
system in, tank, D-box, and a soil absorption system.
yeah. Type of existing is the conventional trenches. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I do see that right now. Yeah, that's what he meant. It was existing as trenches and he's doing a field. Yep.
Okay,
And do we have a septic plan?
Yes, the plan is, do you have it there, Jack?
I do not have the plan now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the application is, this is kind of like after the fact. It just got put through. But, it was approved, but I think this is, during a period of time where, we didn't have anybody in the office. So,
And who's designing the septic system?
This is, Civil Site Engineering, Eric Dickerson.
That company that took over, Andrews, or am I
No.
confused?
Yeah, no, they're taking over, what's his name? Hold on.
Yeah, Andrews was taken over by a company out of Rhode Island.
Yeah,
I just can't remember the name.
I couldn't either. That's why I was asking that question. I
Yeah.
can't remember who it was that took Andrews.
Paul Sonia. Paul Sonia was the civil solutions person, and Eric Dickerson is now the co-owner, soon to be owner. I think Paul is retiring, so Eric bought his business. Eric has done a few systems in town.
Does anyone have any questions on either of the requests for the local upgrades?
Yeah, it's just a different way of perking the property.
Yeah, so what happens if there's restrictions that prevent a percolation test, you still have to do the soil evaluation. But if there's restrictions for repairs only, there is a DEP policy that can be used, and it's kind of like the engineer and the Board of Health has to, agree, yes, there's a problem. They have to go to the most restrictive design criteria in the class. So they do a sieve analysis, and they based upon the worst case scenario.
And Stephen Donatelli was the observer there when it was being done?
Yeah, I thought that's what I
Yes.
saw.
Yes, Steve was there on May 10th.
Yeah.
Any more discussion on this?
Oh, it seems like it's a good solution to
Yeah.
get it straightened out because
Yeah, and if you look at the soil
Nothing-
analysis, that must have been
yeah.
pretty nasty soil.
nothing worse than having your septic system failing, especially in the summer.
So we need a motion
That when that
and a
happens.
second to approve this local upgrade.
All right, so are we doing it one at a time?
I would.
Yeah, do one at a time, please. Yep.
So I'll make the motion to approve the requested local upgrade for 63 North Bridge Street as outlined and confirmed by our engineer, Tom Ryder.
Joyce,
I'll second the motion.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Eat Rod Road, need to do the same thing. And the local upgrade is to reduce from 20 feet from the foundation to 18.5 feet. So we need to do the same thing.
Yeah. So I'll make the motion to accept the local upgrade requests for 8 Rod Road. Based on the recommendations of our Board of Health engineer to make the soil absorption system be at 18.5 foot separation.
I second the motion.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is a well permit for 133 Millville Street.
Okay, so the Richardson well drillers are proposing to drill a well for emergency for the residents at 133 Millville. I just spoke with the rep from Richardson. He's going to prepare an updated proposed plan. I asked him to move the well a little bit further away from the house to ensure that he meets the setback, just in case there's a tank in the far rear left property.
Cesspool, the cesspool.
ESS pool, it's,
Is that the farm? Is that the farm
yes,
of the father, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I know of the property, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I actually had made a stop over there yesterday. Yep. I thought I was going to be getting a signature because we didn't have a signature from the owner on the application, which we require. And in talking with Jack, he had mentioned that the representative from Richardson had come in already because he had taken it to Bob
Bob,
to have him sign it.
Yeah, okay,
So I said, well, I'll go out, I'll meet with Bob and just make sure everything's okay and doing well. And
right.
so I'd gone there yesterday. I met Bob and his son Rolf, and
Yeah,
his grandson Ryan. You
Right.
know, probably know the roads very
I
well.
do,
Yep. Nice people, and Rolf and I think his brother Reese
yeah,
Maybe.
Reese.
have been kind of working diligently to kind of keep water to the property. They're kind of nearby, and so they've been trucking over water and they're putting it in a storage tank there. And so he's helping to keep the potable water flow going, and also to help maintain the water for the animals. So hopefully Richardson's able to kind of start quickly, and hopefully they have a successful drill and they can get a well going.
So Joyce, the reason this is coming before us is a while back, the board decided that it was important to get an engineered plan anytime we drill a well. And this kind of arose from the tight situation we have downtown Mendon in the village, or when we're talking about around Lake Nipmuc.
Right,
Everybody would come in with a drawn diagram and say, this is where we're gonna put the well.
right,
And after a couple of, deliberations as to whether or not it's too close to the neighbor or it's going to create a problem for a neighbor to put a septic system in and replace their cesspool, which is something they would be better for everybody.
right.
We made the decision to add to our well regs that an engineered plan was required. And obviously in an emergency situation like this, that would take too long.
Right.
So that's why we have before us a
But it is a
hand-drawn
pre-existing lot. It's a good sized lot. It's.
Right.
I mean, I'm very familiar with it. It would seem that you'd be able to meet all the requirements for.
Yeah, I
safety.
believe I know the property. I'm not as tuned into it as you guys are, but I
Right.
believe I know which property it is. So,
They have sheep out,
yeah, on the right-hand side going out of town.
going down to, going.
Okay, yeah.
Just be,
So do we need to vote on this?
No vote needed. It's been approved. Tom, I want to thank you very much too, and Jack, for you guys kind of stepping in and realizing the need to expedite, and approve the emergency permit to get that going for them. We know we have certain criteria we put out there to follow, but in this case where without a water, you have to kind of sometimes put processes on the back burner just to help out, the resident. So we know it, and they're
Yep.
aware at some point, Ralph's been working to make contact with engineers.
right,
So they know at some point, an engineer plan would be forthcoming. But we
Okay.
also know that Richardson are very experienced in what they do.
Yeah, very, drilled a lot of wells in town, so I don't
Right.
have any worries there.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so the engineered plan is still gonna come. It's just gonna
Oh,
come in the
absolutely.
rears.
It's gonna come in
Right.
arrears. We'll still need that as a final kind of as-built or document of record
right,
for us, but that'll probably take some time. The engineers are running very busy. But, the main concern here is water for the property and for the residents and the animals.
Right.
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so.
Good, thank you very much,
Tom,
gentlemen,
yeah, for that, yep.
getting that
And
done.
Jack,
No, it's me voicing calling Tom like every 10 minutes, like, Tom, what do I do? Tom, what do I do?
well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom, for bearing up under Jack's constant pressure then. Extra thank you. Yeah.
All right,
All right, that's it.
we have anything else for Tom Ryder?
No, you hit them all.
All right,
Well, you guys are back in person now, huh? All right.
we're gonna bounce back and forth.
Good, I think it's a good idea.
It's nice to have the capability and this actually works very well. I do miss seeing my my board members' faces. There's no doubt about it, but it definitely, you can get a little comfortable, a little lazy when you're working from home.
Hey,
Yeah,
Alan, is that shrimp on the barbie I hear in the background?
Oh, yes, the Traeger's smoking.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Thanks
All right, guys.
again.
All right,
Great job.
thank you. Nice meeting you, Joyce. Okay,
Nice meeting you. I look forward to meeting you in person.
yes, yep, soon. Yep. Today was a little bit tough. I was in 3 meetings at the same time, so I had to bounce around.
I get that.
Well, hang in there, Tom.
All right, thank you. All right, see you at the
All
ring. Yep,
We'll talk to you.
all right.
All right, so do we want to go back to dumpster regulations briefly?
Yeah, we kind of, I don't think we finished the conversation, was kind of in the middle of it, right? So,
Right? So we've decided that the dumpster regulations are gonna cover all dumpsters in town. Permanent and temporary.
well, have we?
I don't know. I'm trying
I
to
mean,
read,
it makes sense to do that, you know.
unfortunately, as we found, when there's a complaint, if there's not something in place, it's very hard for us to enforce.
Be a nuisance.
Yes.
That's my new favorite word, by the way.
There you go.
But no,
She's been
understood.
calling you that for years.
Yeah. No, understood. It does,
So
you know.
can I ask a question?
Please.
Do we have a record of where these dumpsters are? Do we know where the dumpsters are, or has it ever been a requirement to?
Well, with the dumpster permit for the town of Mendon, they're supposed to give us a list of where they have their dumpsters. And they never update it. They should update it, but they don't update it if there's a new dumpster or a dumpster's taken away from the property. So there are some that say, yeah, I have a dumpster at this place. Well, when we get to Marshand, we can talk about dumpsters and how they're placed. But they're supposed to send us a list with their application on where they're gonna be having dumpsters in the
Right,
town of Mendon.
Right,
And that's not under BOH though currently, right?
That would be attaining their awful permit, right?
Yes,
Oh, from an awful permit standpoint.
Yeah.
Right, right. So
Okay.
to answer your question, Joyce, there probably is not a master list
Mm-mm.
that lists every address and every dumpster that is on that property. It comes in bits and pieces when E.L. Harvey applies for their awful permit.
right.
They would say they have a dumpster at this business, they have a dumpster at that one, they service the town of Mendon. So there's not one list compiled that would bring all that information together at this time.
Hmm. Probably a good idea.
well, with FileMaker Pro as a database, it's like Microsoft Access.
Mhm.
I created databases in my old job. Thank God it was with FileMaker Pro, and I was very happy when I came on board here that FileMaker Pro was utilized here.
Right,
So I can create a database, spreadsheets, graphs,
Right.
with everything with
Right.
FileMaker Pro. So
Right.
I can work on that list.
right. Because I know like Ambrosino across the street has Berkowitz.
Right.
He has a dumpster that there, you know, that's a.
Berkowitz is licensed in the town of Mendon.
Correct, yeah.
Right, so you'd have to go to Berkowitz's awful permit to probably find that they service
Right.
that address.
Right.
Right, right.
That's what I was getting at. So there's
But
no
if
actual,
they get Together, I mean, it's a piece of cake,
Yeah.
because there's no
She
permit
said-
by the,
she said confidently.
no permit by the entity
Right,
that's
Right.
required for the dumpster. We're-
Right, but
You were
by the
referring to
business,
the awful
Yes.
in order to service the dumpster,
Mhm.
right,
but no permit by the entity to have the dumpster.
Correct.
right.
Right, okay.
But at least if you can put that in some kind of a, what you say, magnificent computer
Database. I'll put it into a database.
database,
Yeah.
big word. Yeah, I get that.
so what we're talking about is along with a list of all the dumpsters
Right,
would be, how do we
Regulate.
enforce
What's
yeah,
it?
enforce the,
things
yeah,
without
right,
regulations? How do we, bring
Right.
someone into compliance if there is not a regulation
Right.
to cite.
Right,
True.
Um,
I know.
rules and laws prevent chaos. How do we prevent chaos?
right,
Um,
right,
you know, we don't want to regulate everybody to death, but
right. But still, by the same, at the same token, you don't want rats running about and all that stuff.
right, because sometimes it could be something as simple as, well, why isn't this dumpster being emptied more often?
Right,
It could be a, you know, very simple maintenance issue.
right,
It's not that the dumpster's falling apart or tipping over or no one's
Right.
covering it.
right,
It's just, how can you have a dumpster at a restaurant and you're only emptying it once a month?
right,
That could be a problem.
right, yeah. for sure.
So in the regulations, I believe it talks about the dumpster being, you know, emptied at a regular interval.
Right,
And different businesses would require different intervals.
right.
So,
Depending on the size of the business.
right, a restaurant versus an office.
Like
building.
Alicante. I mean, they're busy all the time and,
Right.
you know,
So do we regulate all dumpsters in town?
well, it would seem to me that that if you don't, you're in trouble. You know, how can you say, well, one is, I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
originally, this came up, as Tom pointed out, as almost more of a residential problem. That person that puts a dumpster on their property to do a renovation and the renovation never ends.
Right,
Or someone who puts a dumpster on a property maybe because they're self-employed and they're using that dumpster for their business.
and their own personal,
Correct.
Right. I mean, there's a whole,
right,
It's actually, it was due to what I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was an issue at a residence that I think generated this conversation.
well, actually, there was another address where there was a dumpster, yeah, and the dumpster, very similar. The dumpster wasn't a problem when the dumpster was in the driveway. When the dumpster was placed, I'm going to Carpenter Hill and Butler Road,
Okay, yep,
right? When that
Yep.
dumpster was moved
Yep.
On a grass area,
yep,
it's a retention pond,
uh-huh,
but it's almost always dry, but it was designed to catch all the water coming
Right.
off the hill and let it
Right,
out
yeah,
slowly, right?
sure, yeah,
So when the dumpster was moved, it
Yeah.
became a problem. And if you remember, Laurie Ann Braza went up there to
Yeah.
investigate the situation. She was our like zoning enforcer at the time.
right, yeah,
So she was working with building. So it's not one situation, but it tends to be situations that have cropped up in residential areas versus businesses. We have had some issues in the past with some businesses that weren't closing their dumpsters and the trash was, you know,
Right.
blowing down the street.
but we could cite, and I believe we did, it might have been, well, it's a few years back, and the example was, you know, where I am,
yep, I
And-
do know where you are.
in
yeah.
that area
I
up
do know
there,
that,
and there may be time for another conversation.
Right,
We did have a previous owner in of a business at the time. Because that fencing that goes along there is not completely sealed up. And what happens is, and this actually not, though, may not actually be related specifically to their trash, but that area up there acts like a funnel, like a tunnel in a wind tunnel.
right,
So things come through there that may not actually belong
Yeah, they might not have originated there.
there, but they
Right.
end up and they'll come through the fencing and
Okay.
stuff.
yeah,
So you know, again, I didn't want to, would be fair to put undue pressure on somebody else for trash that isn't originating from them. But in that particular example, it was a case where the lids weren't being
Right.
closed regularly or secured, and
Right.
so, you know, there were things flying out because we actually had samples of material that we could
Yes.
connect.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's whether they say it's not from theirs, you have the proof in the pudding.
yeah, we had a little,
Right,
yeah,
Right.
but I still go back and forth in my head about,
Well, I think that's probably something we need to resolve.
yeah,
And like I said, I think there were only two little items that involved wording, and those regulations can be voted on.
yeah. They also wouldn't want to conflict with potential, because you referred to, when somebody's mapping out a property, as part of that mapping of the property.
Well, before we put the final vote, we send it to planning, zoning. Say, what do you guys think? Is this gonna interfere with anything you already have in place?
Yeah, I would want to make sure that we're not, conflicting or compounding in any way.
Another
'Cause
rule.
you know how that goes.
Find rules. that-
People, people, well, it says over here, you do this, but then over here you got that, and, people get a little confused and,
So I would say to move this along,
yeah.
the first thing we need to determine, is it all dumpsters in town? Or not?
Well, part of that might depend on what we find that may or may not exist elsewhere in guidance from either, say, planning or zoning. Zoning bylaws or planning contingencies from a business perspective, not a residential. I am on board with the residential element. I'm just not certain if I want to make it all encompassing for business included.
Yeah, I consider a business dumpster to be a permanent dumpster. Because it's there all the time.
Yeah,
That
but
business
As long as
can't
that
run.
business is operating, that the
Yeah,
dumpster is.
the only time a dumpster would not be at a business is if the business ceased to exist, which I hope
Right.
doesn't happen.
Good
Right.
point. And I think we have been using the terminology temporary.
Well, I think that's
Right.
how we started, when we started writing these regulations. It's been a long time.
Yeah,
Excuse me. So if we were to talk about temporary dumpsters, we could talk about all temporary dumpsters.
because theoretically, I'd like to think that if we're talking about residential, any dumpster from a residential perspective is temporary.
Right,
But-
and then I think you have to have in my opinion, you would have to have something that marks what temporary is.
Right.
Temporary is in,
A definition,
yeah, definition of
Correct.
temporary.
because a business could have a temporary dumpster. They could be doing renovations,
This is true.
they could be doing construction.
Yeah,
Right,
So it would be outside of their permanent dumpster. So that's why I'm saying,
Okay.
we could call it all temporary dumpsters. Jack?
I want to say when I was reviewing the dumpster regulations, obviously I go around through the Blackstone Valley Partnership towns to see what they have for their permits. And I want to say it's either Northbridge or Hopedale that says you, as a person getting the dumpster, has to fill out this application to get a dumpster, but we're only giving you for 3 months or 6 months. Anything past that, you have to come before the board again to get an extension type of thing.
right.
So is that
That
something
makes
that we
sense.
might be? wanting to
So that would
propose?
imply that the town of Hopedale is regulating temporary dumpsters. That would, that, if
Right.
I understand you
I'll try
correctly.
to find that form again.
And it would seem to me that makes sense because, I mean, I tend to be idealist, but I do have some common sense every once in a while. It says, wait a minute, that, people are gonna do what's gonna be easier for them. They're not gonna care. And if you don't have it all outlined, bing, 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 and then and then if you don't do that, they say, well, you didn't tell me that.
Mhm.
That's a favorite. I didn't know that.
Well, and if we were addressing or regulating all temporary dumpsters, then I don't see how there would be any interference. I'd still want to run it by planning or zoning,
yeah,
because
sure.
the permanent dumpster would come under their umbrella.
yeah, and that's
as
a
the
fix.
property is being designed.
Yeah,
Right,
The only thing that we run into is if someone who has a permanent dumpster and we get a complaint, if it doesn't get resolved with a visit from our health inspector, where do you go from there? Now, I'm gonna make an assumption that a visit from the health inspector to answer a complaint about a permanent dumpster, it's gonna get taken care of.
right.
Not that it might not be a problem 3 months or 4 months or whatever down the road, but I'm gonna, again, make the assumption that someone's gonna take care of it. If their employees aren't closing it, if the employee that is supposed to clean up around it isn't cleaning up around it, or if
Right.
the dumpster company is being a slob, they're gonna they're gonna take some kind of action to resolve it.
Well, when those situations happen, without necessarily creating a regulation for that piece, I would think a Board of Health could address it as a sanitation code issue,
Right.
which we have, you're probably aware, we have quite a bit of guidance and authority when it comes to implementing sanitation code requirements. So somebody who is in violation, no trash is not staying in the dumpster and it's creating a sanitation issue, the Board of Health could act under that guidance to mitigate or resolve the issue, right? As opposed to going to a regulation, to create a regulation to solve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, now I believe the town of Upton regulates all dumpsters. And I believe they're pretty strict. Because I know a number of years back, that was probably the first time I heard the term dumpster juice,
Yeah.
which definitely caught my attention as.
Yeah. Brings all kinds of,
So, again, are we gonna regulate all dumpsters in town, or are we really gonna go after, at this time, let's say, temporary dumpsters?
Well, I would like to know what exists now for any kind of guidance by other groups, whether it be through zoning or planning or building for that matter.
Okay, so you want to do that first,
I would want to get an answer to that area,
okay?
to be honest, to see what may or may not exist currently. I would I would be leaning toward the temporary aspect of guidance, of wanting to have guidance for temporary versus what we're calling the permanent dumpsters, which are the ones that businesses would have.
right,
The businesses there, they have a dumpster there. And be able to address any concern with inappropriate usage of the fixed dumpster, the permanent dumpster. It's probably going to be a sanitation issue.
right.
Okay.
If something, I'm trying to think of the different,
Jack,
Mhm.
why don't you reach out?
Mhm.
Zoning, building, planning?
those are,
Anybody else, Joyce?
No, that seems to be,
All right,
There should be Gil in one stop.
good.
yeah.
Just see what they have out there
Okay.
regarding dumpsters.
The other thing, I mean, I feel like permanent dumpsters need to have some kind of regulation, because if you don't, they're gonna let them, rot and dumpster juice.
Mhm.
That's, the permanents are more likely to have that sort of thing. So I'm thinking to myself that we need to have regulations for both, and permitting and to say, hey, you've had a dumpster there for 5 years. What's it look like now? And, they need to, maybe it's a $5 permit or something like that,
Mhm.
just to get them in their head that they have to, it has to be regulated.
Yeah.
It seems to me.
Yeah, I know in my travels around town, I have noticed dumpsters that were starting to be in disrepair.
Right.
But I have seen the companies eventually change them
Replace
out.
Right, yep,
I know some of these smaller dumpsters have actually now, instead of being made out of metal, I've seen them made out of a very thick plastic.
yep,
Which obviously they last longer. So I think advances are being made to
right,
control the quality and the upkeep of the container from
Yeah.
most reputable companies,
right.
which is a good thing. So, all right, so we're gonna direct Jack to check with,
Zoning and building.
yeah, and see what comes back. And then we'll make the decision as to whether it's temporary or all. In the meantime, there were 2 items, I believe, that regarded wording that Daniel was working on. One of them was an item that he had in red in the margin that he might want to change the wording, the proposed wording a little bit, and I can't remember what the other one was. Let's see if we can get Daniel to put his eyes on that
Okay,
and make that adjustment.
okay.
And then at our next meeting,
Mm-hmm.
let's see if we can't get these things to the point where we can send them to legal. And then hopefully, 2 weeks after that, we can get them voted on.
Do we need to send them to legal?
Well, I thought we were at one point considering doing that, just to make sure we weren't
Yeah, doing something.
over-regulating or,
You never
Now,
know.
Don't you
you
want
know.
to get into a little trouble?
Hmm?
Don't you want to get? into-
regulations.
Oh, I hate getting into trouble.
I'm listening to you.
Town meeting? Or
Public hearing?
public hearing?
That was on the pages that Danielle sent us,
Yeah.
and I can't remember.
Okay, well, those are the steps that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So we're talking about checking with those other 3 departments in town to
Yep.
make sure that we're not
Overstepping.
duplicating, contradicting anything that they already have in place.
Right,
We're gonna get Daniel to finalize the changes.
Yep.
We're gonna then decide whether we're gonna make them pertain to all
Overall.
dumpsters or just temporary dumpsters.
Yep.
All right. So then they have to, we gotta get legal to put their eyes on them, and we gotta have a,
So all slash temporary for both commercial and residential. What was it?
and then we would have to have a meeting, see if there was any opposition or comments from the public.
Correct.
So let's see.
Speaking of which, I know we do have a guest on the call. I don't know if anyone has any commentary for the topic that we're on. Feel free to speak if you wish. I won't say forever hold your peace because that's a different situation. Okay, just wanted
Alright,
to let people know
yeah.
where they have an
So
opportunity to talk.
we've got 4 or 5 steps there.
Yeah.
That we gotta get accomplished to get those things to the finish line. The
Yep.
regulations to the finish line. So let's see if we can't get that done in the next couple of meetings.
Yep.
And get them off the agenda.
Speaking of which, getting things done, I hadn't thought of it. We had Tom on. I was gonna throw out. So how's the private well regulation coming?
At least we already have some.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have some in
Okay.
place.
So we do have something
guideline.
to back up what we're saying, and we experienced that with the well that needs to be drilled on an emergency basis.
Yep.
So we're not in terrible trouble there.
Nope.
That's definitely on the radar that it needs to be completed.
We have some
But-
modifications that we're looking to
Right.
do for the private well rigs to kind of factor in some of the building elements that are coming to town and to account for variables that aren't currently in place now.
Duplexes that,
Yeah,
should they have one well? Should they
Shared-
have 2
shared
wells? What the
systems.
distance
Right.
is?
things
should
like
be.
that nature, right?
Right.
How that would all,
work
how that
out,
should all
yeah.
play out,
Right,
right?
Yeah, it seems as though we're gonna have more multifamily dwellings down the pike.
right,
So we want to make sure that everybody has control of their well.
Or everyone understands the responsibility,
right,
Right.
or when everything's great when it's all working,
yeah, but when things go
when
south,
it's not working.
right,
Yeah, we actually had a Realtor on one of our calls who was giving us some of her experiences.
Yep.
And she was actually going to reach back to some of her fellow Realtors just to, gather some information and give us some input
right,
as to what people in a multifamily dwelling that may only have one well, which was acceptable,
right,
what they may have experienced that was good, bad.
right. Somebody that's abusing the water, somebody that's, yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
Well, it could be something
differences
as
how-
simple as, no, you changed the filter. No, you changed the filter.
Right.
How's this all
right,
work
yep,
so that everybody has good water?
yeah,
Right.
she was had very positive things to say about us moving in that direction, because when it's not in writing,
Right.
it's the gray area.
yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay,
That could,
next
that could be
thing,
the next most popular phrase here now. Let's try to come up with something here.
next item on the agenda, Rock the Block food permits.
Application of the fees, where were you gonna waive the fees for the food vendors?
Okay, and I believe I saw some emails going back and forth that instead of thinking about the 350th, we should focus on what was done for the 350th block party downtown? If we were gonna follow a precedent, did I understand that correctly?
Well, there had been, we were looking back at what might have transpired already. And in the past, the 350th being a good example, when that event was put forth, the Board of, and it was kind of a strange, and thank you for finding the minutes, but unfortunately, I couldn't remember how the notation got noted or why it got noted. But we did apparently at the time vote to waive the fees, but there was something about
A donation.
as long as the entity was providing a donation to the cause.
Yeah, Joyce, the background on this is Lonnie approached the board to waive the food permit fees for the upcoming Rock the Block party in
I don't
town.
know what that is, the Rock the
Oh,
Block Party. That's my
so-
next question. I was just gonna
Yeah,
say
so,
what that
so,
is.
so that's an event that's being planned for September 10th.
Okay,
It's kind of in follow-up to, remember the block party we did for the 350th?
right?
So the idea was that it would be kind of nice to do that again and maybe every 5 years or so,
Right.
repeat the same event.
have a
So the
nice- yeah.
intention was to do it downtown,
Right,
do what we did before.
right.
And I guess, but unfortunately, the logistics for that weren't going to work. So they're doing the Rock the Block actually up at Memorial Park.
Okay, which that, to me, that sounds a little bit better anyway.
There'll be all sorts of, there'll be different food vendors, beverages. We're doing a cornhole tournament, other
Oh, yeah.
games and so
Yeah.
forth for kids and whatnot. So we're looking forward to being a really fun event.
Right,
But as Alan mentioned, Lonnie was looking to get, have a see if the board would consider waiving any fees that we would be responsible for. Typically, it's going to be food vendors,
vendors, yeah.
if we would consider doing that. So,
So, I mean, when you renege the fee, but you still do the inspection to what they're doing,
Correct.
correct,
right?
right.
Okay.
Now, some of these vendors may have seasonal food permits already in place.
Right,
So their food truck or establishment has already been inspected and they have a permit that covers them for the town of Mendon for the whole
right.
season, let's
Good.
say.
Yeah, so that's good,
So they would already be covered.
right,
But then you could have other vendors
Right.
that this is the first time that they've appeared in town this year, so they don't have a current permit.
right,
So they need, as you mentioned, they need their inspection and they need their permit
right,
application.
right.
So how do we handle it? You know, we were kind of looking back at history just to see what we've done in the past so that,
Right,
you know, if it sort of gives us a reason to be consistent.
yeah,
And that's what we try to do. But as Tom pointed out, to do it right, you don't always have to follow history or be consistent because
Right.
times change.
right. And things
So-
are different, and they have all kinds of new facility things, and
Yeah.
so that's.
So as Tom researched and Jack researched, they found that at the 350th, the fees or the block party, the fees were waived. But it stated that they were waived if the entity made a donation, and we don't have clarification on that as to what that meant.
Right,
So, you know, we need to decide this situation tonight and we need to vote on it so that we
so
can
it.
let them know.
It's a community activity, right? Correct.
Yes. Yep.
So, and it's to benefit the community
Yep.
and
Yep.
so am I being Pollyanna to say, why would we want to collect money from it?
Well, then I'll let you respond to that one.
My thought was that if these entities are in business to make money,
Right,
then they're not giving their wares away to the town. So I'm kind of on the fence
right,
because other entities that are in town as businesses pay for food permits.
right. But
And
this
they-
is like a 1 day thing.
No.
Am I right?
It is.
Okay, all
And it
right,
may be a 1 every 5 year thing.
right.
You said something there about other entities in town.
Right, I'm thinking of other restaurants or businesses in town. They pay for their food permit every year. They have their inspections.
Right.
Now, granted, they're doing business on a continual basis,
Right.
okay, but we also have experienced a lot of businesses in town that are very generous when we have these events,
Correct.
whether they do a sponsorship or
Yep.
they do a donation.
Yep.
Now, before I go any further, I want Jack to have the opportunity to speak.
Well, I just want to say, because now I'm going to throw Tom underneath the bus.
Yeah.
Because Don mentioned that since Danielle or Daniel, you doing the inspections, we're not being charged for their time or their services, so why would we collect money for services we're not being billed for? So I just want to Tom, that's what he said.
That's
Okay, I agree and understand that, but that's only because we happen to have them at a service at this particular moment,
correct.
and we need to plug those holes. And we haven't, because of all the different things that have happened with staffing, et cetera, we have not been able to focus on plugging those holes. So if we're gonna do something, I believe that I want to be able to do it whenever a similar situation arises. So the odds are very good when a situation like this pops up again, we're paying the health inspector for each inspection, or they're on our payroll as a salary. We are very, very fortunate that Missy set this up,
Mhm.
and we have been leaning on them quite a bit. To the point where I almost worry if we were leaning on them too much, but they're adults. I'm sure if we were taking more of their time than what they felt was reasonable,
Mhm.
they would speak up.
Yeah.
And they would tell us. But I mean, like I said, I could go either way. I'm all about the town. I'm all about the community, but I want to be able to treat, as Joyce brought up early in the meeting, I want to be able to treat everybody the same. So we all are, have different but similar opinions on this. So I say we bring it to a vote.
And also as part of this, I think we will have participation from establishments in town that will be participating in this event too. So all the vendors, all the food people won't necessarily be from out of town. There'll be
Right.
people that will be a combination. To what extent, I don't know. I haven't
Right.
seen a list.
And they've already paid, but they've already.
But they've
paid.
already, we already know they're good.
Right.
And they're all set.
Bottom line, with all this discussion,
Yeah.
we might be talking about 1 or 2 food trucks.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Okay,
Talking
so,
about 10.
right, but what I'm saying is we might be talking about 1 or 2 food trucks that don't already have permits and don't already have inspections.
Correct. Because it's only the ones that are
Talking about
coming.
one.
I'm talking about 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to vote on this
Yeah.
tonight.
That's all you have so far is one?
Well, they gave me a list. This is from Steve Daigle and Lonnie Tinio. They gave me
Okay.
a list of 10 people that they sent out the applications to.
Okay.
Out of the 10 businesses, where'd he go? Three Sons Grilled Cheese is already permitted in the town of Mendon. The other 9 are not.
Okay, so there's 9 that are not.
9 that are not permitted in the town of Mendon. So 9 times 5,
Yeah,
so $450.
Yeah.
But again, we're not going to see any expense against that
Right,
for this cycle.
right.
Granted, in 5 years from now, if they do it again, situation could be different,
Mhm.
but,
And somebody else can make that.
and somebody else might be making that decision. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, we currently have some long-term members, but that doesn't mean we're all still gonna be here.
And part of me, let me just throw this out too, with regard to, we've had these discussions before. With regard to fees, my view, and I think Alan would probably concur, fees that are assessed through different groups, different government agencies, municipality, what have you, should really be about covering the cost to do business.
Right.
And really not trying to be a bank to make money. It's very difficult to do a zero-sum game in this arena,
Right.
but so we think overall our fee structure is probably pretty good in comparison to some other towns. I know
Mhm.
Jack's done some comparison, Missy's done some comparison, and there are some towns out there that it's pretty amazing what they charge
Right.
for some services. So I consider, I like to say we've been pretty good in that regard.
Right.
And so in this particular case, just knowing that none of the, well, we certainly want to do the inspection piece,
Right,
but knowing there'll be no expense, no invoice coming in for the service of the inspection. And it's a community event,
one every 5 years.
right? If it keeps going, right? Yeah. My vote would be that, we suspend the fee for those participating in this event.
For the Rock the Block,
So,
for the Rock the Block
for the
event.
Rock the Block, for the Rock the Block event, yes.
All right, so you're a yay.
To suspend the fees, I'm a yes.
Okay, Joyce?
And I concur.
Okay. I wish it was 9 that already had permits and 1 that didn't. But I mean, you brought up some very good points. So I will vote yay on this, for this event.
Yep, for this event.
And, you know, for the circumstances noted.
Right, in 5 years, yeah, it could be, as much as we might try for consistency and use history, sometimes it can't always work.
Things change.
Well, that's right.
But
Things
and, you know,
change. Yeah,
Again, we try to be consistent.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I've lived enough decades to know that every decade things change.
right.
And
right.
it's not just my hair color.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
And you know, the other
We
thing
can let
is
Lonnie know.
in 5 years, you know, who knows what's gonna be? I mean, you know,
oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, in 5 years, there could be one big sponsor that
right,
wants to run this thing
Right.
for that particular event.
Yeah.
And they're gonna cover all the expenses, so
Right.
so be it. But I mean, the way the stars are aligned at this particular moment,
yep,
you know, like I said, I would, if things were different, then I would have to vote differently.
Yeah, understood.
And to, you know, I know there are some towns that charge larger fees,
Yes, yeah,
but some of those towns also have a full-time town engineer, a full-time health inspector.
Yep.
We don't have those full-time people and those full-time overheads.
correct.
In 5 years, that could change.
that's right, yeah.
If Route 16 keeps doing what Route
Building up,
16 is
yep.
doing,
Right,
things are gonna change in the department. All right, so we got that one taken care of.
Okay.
Okay.
Next item, Mendon Tobacco Enforcement Update.
So I've spoken with Joan Hamlet this afternoon on the phone. The committee met last week. One of the main voters was out sick all last week, so they didn't make a final vote yet. So today she says she's 90% sure we can be put on the grant. But either way, she goes, Jody Regnetti will be here in Mendon to do her
Education. part.
education part.
Okay. Um,
You up to speed on that?
no,
Bob,
I have
you
no
wanna-
idea.
okay, yeah.
Fillerman?
AJ
I don't
Fisk-
think that's in my
AJ
little
Fisk was
Backing
very,
up on this short.
Tisk, tisk.
our former chairman was very passionate about tobacco enforcement. He was present when the original tobacco regulations were written to raise the age to 21. Number of years ago now.
Right,
Yeah.
And was always passionate about making sure that we did our annual inspections and our stings. We had a company, Elliott Brown,
Elliot Brown.
that
yeah.
would go out there and make sure that everybody was in compliance.
right,
And we would occasionally find some violations.
right, of course.
We lost contact with Elliott Brown over
Oh,
the years. So we reached out. Missy was very helpful, and Joan Hamlet is actually out of Leominster. And we were able to connect up with her and talk with her. And her organization believes a lot in education.
mhm,
They also have the power to hit these places with some pretty big fines if they don't comply.
mhm,
And she also has a network of people that work with her that actually go out and do the education component. And then they will go out and do the sting component.
mhm. And will they do the education like in the schools or where,
This is to
where
the,
does this happen?
this is to the store owners.
Oh, to the store owners.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
okay,
what the
okay,
rules are.
okay.
This
Oh,
is what
sorry,
the
I
look.
misunderstood.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. This is what to look for when someone's trying to buy
Right,
tobacco. This is what they might, a scenario where they might try to use to
mhm,
get you
Yeah.
off guard, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah,
Because, and someone might be a new owner and, not have any experience,
right.
even though they bought a business that has a license to sell tobacco. So they want to make sure that everybody knows what they need to post, how they need to train their employees.
right,
Big component. So AJ was very excited about that component.
right.
We're not trying to catch anybody doing something wrong.
Oh, but you want
We're
to
trying to
save
help you do
somebody
it
from.
right.
Yeah, right,
So
Keep them honest.
right.
in the
Right.
meantime, Joan was very good because if you're part of this regional grant,
Right,
there's no cost to the town.
well, that's good,
So that's a bonus.
right, yeah,
So you not only get to participate in the program, get to network with the other towns that are part of this grant program,
right,
which Missy was always a big advocate of, trying to get the small town of Mendon to be part of something larger in anything that, she did. And fortunately, Jack is on the same page,
right,
because if not, we could be expending dollars, taxpayer dollars that we
Right.
don't have to,
I love it,
have to spend. We can use that money for something else.
right,
So right now, we're just trying to make sure that all our ducks are in line before, we go down the wrong road. Because at one point, we were gonna have Joan's assistant that does this work out in the field, Jody, come into town and become an employee so that we could pay her. So, fortunately, at the right time, before that was done, we found out that we
Right.
might qualify to be part of this
Right.
grant.
good,
So this is an ongoing process that we're
Right.
hoping in the next few weeks
Yep.
to get started. So we're good.
now, does that include vaping as well?
Yeah.
Oh, Dan,
Hey.
are you just starting your day now?
Okay, because
Yeah.
that, to me, that's become more dangerous with the young
Actually,
kids than,
I'm trying to think, in town, under the state laws,
yeah,
you can't have all those fruity flavors
Right,
and all
right,
that other
that's
stuff, right?
right.
They even
You have
eliminated
menthol.
menthol.
Right, right.
yeah,
Which I can't believe
So-
that
Yeah.
went through, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting when we first put the tobacco regulations in effect and raised the age to 21, we were advised, because we had to have a meeting,
right,
that we were advised that it could be like a group of convenience store owners that belong to an organization and no one appeared.
right,
Yeah, we're very kind of surprised.
Now, we don't have a lot of those stores in town,
right,
but that doesn't mean that these people don't have, the same rights,
right, sure,
and, they all kind of belong to these organizations because
Right.
that's how they learn how to run their businesses
right,
better.
yeah,
When we did that notification, I don't know if you, recall, did we just follow the basic guideline of putting it in the paper only? Or
I
did we
don't-
actually send anything to businesses to make them personally aware?
I don't remember what we were required to do, to be honest with you.
Because, there's a minimum requirement when it comes to notification and doing a public hearing on something. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to personally go and notify every group
right,
directly, right?
right,
Typically putting it in the paper or posting it.
right.
Yeah, out front of
Once
the
or
town.
twice.
hall.
Like the town crier, which goes to
sufficient.
everybody, yeah,
So if, on a daily basis, the businesses probably, I'll bet, didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah,
right,
I mean, that's the same process we're gonna have to follow with the dumpster regulations.
Yeah, well, and if that, I just would wonder if in that situation, if we might want to be a little bit more personable. Not that we would have to, but
it never hurts.
it doesn't hurt. I mean,
Never.
Well, anybody that has an awful permit could be notified.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm just thinking, if that time,
You
Yeah.
know,
when that time comes.
right, this is what we're doing. If, you have any questions or want to hear what we're proposing,
Right.
please accept this invitation.
Well, I was thinking like, with the dumpster regulations, once they're approved, because they all have to reapply for their permits annually anyway. So I'm gonna send out reminder notices and like say, go to our website, here's the link. We have new dumpster regs in the town of Mendon. You're gonna be required to follow these in
Right.
2023.
right, yeah, that's great, yeah,
Yeah.
right, makes sense,
So if you send in a permit application,
Yep.
you're agreeing to these new rules and regulations.
true,
All
Yep.
right, next item.
What we got?
There's no further comment.
Oh, I'm good on tobacco at the moment. Oh, I will say one thing.
Please.
Wasn't it through the tobacco discussions early on that we met the doctor?
Yes,
He
the
was,
one that just retired.
oh, you did just retire?
Yeah.
You're thinking of DJ?
Yeah,
No, I'm thinking of, and I'm wondering if I'm confusing subjects of the doctor that came before us. I think you were on the board back in the beginning about raising the smoking age. And he was a big proponent of this, and he came from like Lexington or
was he a
something.
pediatrician?
Was that?
Was he a
Probably a
pediatrician?
Yeah, like a
Probably
pediatrician. Remember him?
I'm confusing the two, but yeah,
Tobacco, right?
yeah, I think you're right.
So one of the things that he said to us when he came to did a presentation, because he had spoke all over, was that it really was an eye opener for me. He said that the average person's brain doesn't mature until the age of 24 or 25,
Right.
which was kind of an eye opener for me in that discussion
Having
because
kids.
having
helps.
kids, yeah, exactly, but also knowing what we put upon our youth under the guise of
Right,
you're old enough
to know better.
at 18, they could go into the military, we give them a license, it actually even happens earlier, all these responsibilities, and yet knowing that from a proven medical and scientific standpoint, if the brain is still growing and hasn't matured yet for probably another 7 years or so, was very scary
Right,
to hear that. It was just kind of an eye
Oh, yeah, how
opener.
many
Right.
in that age group go off to college,
Off to college,
Right.
which is,
Course.
fairly independent living.
it's
Yes.
very.
I mean, they might not be paying the bill, but
They're not
you know,
paying the bill.
they're,
I'm here.
that's on your own.
Right, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
very different than living under your parents' roof.
oh yeah,
right,
that was just something that
yeah,
spins around in my head all the time.
right, yeah.
Hey, listen, we know you were above average. You were there.
I was there, all right.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to E.L. Harvey Scholarship Awards.
All right, I did reach out to the two participants who were the only two participants of saying that they received the 2 scholarships. I told them to come on in and
Okay.
get their money and sign a media release because we want to get a photo up with the board, and they haven't contacted me back.
Okay,
So I'll reach out again
So-
tomorrow.
well, I was gonna say, in another week, they're gonna be leaving for school.
Hmm.
So we're not gonna
You'd
meet
think
for,
they'd want their money.
yeah, well,
Well,
Oh,
we could still get them the money. What came up out of the conversation is what we were trying this time around was to see about if there was a desire to do kind of like a photo op opportunity and then
Right.
like put it in the paper.
right, which I think is very important. I mean, especially since you only had 2 applicants.
mhm.
Correct.
Right, so I mean, that would make, I mean, I think that would bring forth the more,
The awareness.
awareness, big word, I couldn't think of it.
Well, and to show appreciation to the company that's putting the money up.
Correct, correct,
Unfortunately, our rep, Mike Suspan, who's our rep from E.L. Harvey, unfortunately wasn't able to work it. So
right,
if we move forward, it'd basically be the board and the winners
Right.
going up.
yeah,
for
but,
some
little
but it would be
Photoshop magic.
advertised, it would
I
be
know
advertised,
Photoshop.
it would be advertised as the E.L. Harvey.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
so that would, I mean, even if he's not here,
Yeah,
they're getting
There we
the
get
credit.
get recognized.
Correct,
Correct.
yeah.
I think the only issue we're gonna run into is in 2 weeks, these kids are gonna be gone.
I will call them again tomorrow, both of them.
They do want their money, though,
Oh, well, I'm sure, and
Yeah.
they're gonna get their money regardless. It's
right,
just that we would miss that opportunity,
right,
as you mentioned, to promote the situation and maybe attract more applicants.
right, because I never heard of it.
Now, are you
I never heard of
communicating
it.
out of curiosity with the students or with the parents?
With the students themselves.
With the students themselves only?
Talking to the parents.
I
Because they're both
would,
over 18.
I understand, but I
You'd
would
think that
think,
that would make a difference, but the 24-year-old stuff is coming into play here.
yes, I would think you might want to be inclusive of the parents as well, because as we just discussed, even at the age of 18, the maturity level may
Right,
not necessarily be in
and
play.
they're the ones that are paying the bill, the parents,
You know
so
what I'm
they would be
saying?
happy to have a few coins
It-
come in.
So maybe some parental guidance could help facilitate.
Yeah.
You
The
know,
parents may not even know they want that scholarship.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, Hello?
Can I just, did you do email or phone?
Both.
Okay, because I
I got
know
to call them first.
I found a big shift. Nobody responds to email anymore. With these kids, it's all texting
It's all texting,
calling.
right?
Maybe
good
that's
point.
a struggle.
Yeah,
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, things have definitely changed. I work with the scholarship committee for the Brothers of the Brush,
right,
and we had no applicants.
right,
And we go directly to the guidance offices
right,
to tell them that we're offering this scholarship, and we do it every year.
right.
And this year we had no applicants.
Yeah.
First time you had no applicants.
First time since I've been serving, and I've done it a number of years. I do it with two other guys. And one of them is Wayne Phipps,
Yeah,
you know, a longtime educator, and the other is
Right.
Kevin Rudden.
right,
And we were definitely stumped.
Wow.
right.
Is,
So Mike
John
Gills,
Martellus.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. John Martell joined
Right.
us.
my quilting guild has, because we're a 501c3, that we are, we feel compelled that we do that. So we always give $1,000 scholarship every year. And this year we had 3, because I'm on that committee, of course. And we do have, but our scholarship is site specific. It's for people who are doing like creative design, blah, 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 that kind of thing, quilting being very creative. and-
Right. Yeah, at one point we had the qualification, we wanted someone going into environmental science. This is back when Republic was our trash
Right,
hauler.
yeah,
Right,
That was like, that, someone who was going into environmental science got a few extra points,
right.
so to
yeah,
speak.
Yeah,
But I can only remember maybe someone hitting that qualification maybe once in the last 8 years.
yeah.
But I mean, there's.
Now, do you give it to the school? Does it go to the school?
the application itself, yep, the
Yeah,
schools
okay, the
themselves,
schools
And it's
around,
put in the crier.
and we
Yeah.
put advertised in the crier.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do.
yeah. See, we, on the other hand, we have like 12 towns that we have members from, so we have to do it to all 12 towns,
Yeah.
but, so that would give us, better
Yeah,
draw, but, you don't have to do that.
as Dan mentioned, there's been a shift.
I know, believe me, I live with it.
Not to digress, but just on the scholarships that you'd mentioned, the brothers, are you aware of the one candidate that did get presented? You haven't been reached out to? Okay, at some point
Okay,
you guys will get a community.
No knowledge at all.
We had a late entry that the brothers approved,
Oh, okay.
but we deferred it to the scholarship committee to address it and determine if it qualified.
Another one of those meetings I didn't make it to.
Yeah, you unfortunately missed, but just so you're aware. Anyway,
Okay.
back
All
on the
right.
BOH.
But that would be nice, I think, that if we could get them to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get together.
Marshawn Hawley.
All right, Michael Marshall has come to the Board of Health to get a permit for trash hauling. During his application process, I was notified by the town of Uxbridge that Michael Marchand was falsifying state inspection reports on his vehicles. He was caught and he is being charged federally and state and locally by the authorities. In reviewing his application, Tom has noticed that his insurance certificate looked a little funky. So I reached out to the insurance company. The insurance company responded back to me like, we do not have any current certificate of insurance for this person. The certificate that you have here was expired in 2002. So he falsified his insurance certificate with the town of Mendon. So.
I have personally worked with this fellow.
A few people did have dumpsters with him.
Well, not, it has nothing to do with dumpsters. I worked with him when I was working as doing, the environmental engineering and that sort of thing. Because I did that after I did this stuff, I went and did that.
So now
And
this
I worked with
individual
him.
now is the son, you're referring to the
Michael
son
Martian.
The
Right.
son.
versus
Yeah.
the father. Okay,
Right,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, 3, 4, 5 years ago now, maybe.
just before the COVID.
They came to the board
Yeah.
to apply for a permit. And we were very reluctant
Right,
based on past history.
right,
He appeared at the board. It was father, son, and attorney.
Correct.
And it was stressed to us that it was the son who was honoring his uncle by running this company,
right.
that his father had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and we did have to take into account, even though there was some negative history with the father's running a business, we did have to treat the other individual separately. In all
Absolutely.
fairness, which we did,
Right, yeah,
and in the presentation,
right,
provide the opportunity, which is what we did.
right.
So he was granted a permit.
Yep.
And he was obviously put on notice that, you know, we're gonna be wishing him much success. We're gonna be watching closely.
Right,
So, I mean, it was black and white. There was no way that he could have misunderstood what we were saying.
right,
And his attorney and his father heard this, the whole thing.
right.
It's unfortunate that this has come about, but I'm glad that the town of Uxbridge has shared this information with
That's
us.
very good. That's special. Right.
So at this juncture, does he have a awful permit, an active awful
He has
permit in the
no
town of
permits in the
Mendon?
town of Mendon whatsoever.
Okay, so,
But he has 3 businesses with whom he's working. Is that what I'm reading here? Right,
Yes, he does. Biscuits and Paws,
right,
Oh, on Millville?
yep.
yeah,
Okay.
New England Steakhouse.
yeah.
And
And
I'm not
Hideaway
familiar with the
Pizza.
third.
Hideaway,
Oh, you get that, yep.
okay,
So I think we may, well, I know we have to kind of rule this, we weren't able to, because of, this was something we had to be discussed in the meeting,
right.
as
Yeah,
opposed to
sure.
communicating
Yeah,
outside
right,
of the
yeah,
meeting.
right, yep, yep.
But, so I know we'll have to vote on this and then, but I believe as part of that, knowing there are entities involved that deal with them, I believe it might, an extension of voting on this would be to notify those businesses.
That he.
Absolutely.
Our situation,
Yeah. the
his situation.
So they have to get another collar
Yeah,
because that's
Right.
what they'll, yeah.
until he can come forth with everything perfect, but which I. don't want to
yeah, it
be-
doesn't sound like they're gonna undo this one quickly.
no,
I had not good experience.
Yeah, no, I would say that, they're gonna be done in the town of Mendon for a while, if
Right.
not other towns.
Right.
I mean, federal charges are pretty severe.
Severe, right. Well, I can make a motion that we notify the businesses with whom he deals. And that we remove him from our, let him notify him that he has no permitting here.
I would second that motion and to, include in that to approve the letter, the draft that's been presented to us
Right,
to send to this individual, the cease and desist operations letter. Well,
correct, yes.
All those in favor?
I,
I,
Aye. Thank you.
so carried. Where's the gavel? Need a gavel. No, it'd be Alan, I know there's 2 of them.
No,
Alan's
you can have
job.
the big one or the little one.
I don't want to make any noise. I
Hey,
talk enough.
too late now.
all right, is anybody else on? There's nobody else on, so no more topics to anticipate.
Yeah.
Restructuring of the board.
Okay.
What's your thought?
My thought is that I would like to be a regular member and just continue to learn because things have changed since I've been here before. I mean, I have experience, there's no question about that. I'm happy to do it, but I don't, I think I'm just gonna be, I'd like to be a regular member and you seem to be doing very well. I'm
Thank you. However.
Dan, yep,
However,
give him a yay.
I.
it's only 10 more months.
I know. I will do whatever is for the best of the team. But be aware, I have some personal obligations that I have no way of knowing how they are going to go or how long they are going to carry on. So along with being self-employed,
Yeah.
I may get distracted. So if everybody is prepared to deal with that, and Jack, you've done a wonderful job. I'm not a great email person. I appreciate the package that I get so I can do my homework and be as prepared as possible for the meeting. I will do it up to the election. Because I'm very vested in the Board of Health. And I want to see us continue to do the business of the people.
What do you mean up to the election?
Well-
What does that mean?
That means it'll
What
be
does that
time,
mean,
it'll be
Donald?
time to shuffle the cards again.
Oh, okay.
And let me say this about that. I'm happy to, I don't want that position, but I'm happy to help you and anytime, you know, if you need anything, or if you want to say, can we do this? Go look at this. I'm happy to do that.
Well, thank you.
And I mean it, but again, you know, I just assume, you know, just say my opinions.
Let us have it. No, really, I look forward to learning from you.
Well,
Um,
I don't know what you're gonna learn, but
No,
maybe
no.
bad words, maybe. A new selection or something.
Well, there
I
you
don't
go,
know.
new selection. I need a new vocabulary. I had proposed when AJ ran again for reelection, and he was gonna start his next term, that I didn't know if we wanted to reshuffle the deck at that point,
Right,
because I had been vice chairman for quite a while. AJ had been chairman, maybe he wanted to just, you know,
Relax
be
a
a
little.
member, or he
Right.
wanted to just be a temporary
right,
chairman, you know?
right,
Only when the chairman wasn't there, he would step up,
right,
like I've done.
right.
So, and I didn't know what interest Tom may have had.
I
So
think he
that,
could be vice chairman.
yeah, well, so that was why I proposed reshuffling the deck.
Right.
Yep.
When I first came to the board, it seemed that that's what we did at election time.
Yep.
But I think the last time it was done was when you wanted to reshuffle the deck, I became vice chairman. And
Right.
it's been a long time.
Yes.
So that was my original proposal, and now obviously we're at this juncture and we're reshuffling the deck. So I'm willing to do it, but I just wanted people to know what I have on my plate.
Mhm.
And it's something I've never experienced before, so I'm learning every day.
And so, and so just for the point of the nuance of what we're really talking about, being the chairman, say versus the vice chairman, because, you know, you've kind of voiced that for now anyway, being the member is what you'd
What I
like to
wanna
do,
do,
right? So what is really the extra obligation in being a chairperson versus a vice chair? Do we really know?
Well, I know AJ would get a phone call from the police department at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone was spewing storage up against someone else's house over on the lake.
That's the classic incident that we,
Right. So, I mean, I don't mind that kind of thing. You know, I feel like we're partners. That is what it seems to me. So we help each other.
what's the acronym, Jack?
Oh, teams?
Team.
Team.
There's no I in team.
Right.
And
And so, you
what's
know-
it stand for?
Well, my day was together, everybody achieves more.
There you go.
Uh-huh. Well, you know what, as life goes, you know, we all know that, you know, there's a phrase that starts with S and happens, you
Mhm.
know, so we know that, and I'm happy to be helpful to you if you need
same.
that, and,
Yeah,
you know, and maybe we can, you know, say like in 1 month, if that we'd be on call sort of for that kind of thing,
Mhm.
you know, and so you're not always on call.
Oh, yeah, no, I have a feeling there may be a period of a few days where I may not be very available.
Yeah,
It won't be a long period of time. Probably the longest part is waiting
right,
for that day.
right. So, I mean, again,
Yeah, so I don't know.
I like to think that we could be a team and,
Absolutely.
and support you and you could support me and not financially, by the way. But if it comes to that, you could.
Well,
And ultimately, we have Jack supporting all of us,
That's right, there you go. It's,
right?
he's got
This is
broad
this
shoulders.
is the anchor right here.
Yeah. And
But if
the,
we-
the force is with them.
That's-
We're covered.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
I think we could work together and,
Right.
and fix anything that needs to be done amongst us.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's-
did
that's-
have a situation where AJ called me once and I had to respond to the country store
Right,
because someone had driven through the front doors.
That's right.
And, you know, I called Lenny, our
Right.
health inspector, and
Right.
Lenny guided me through what I needed to do
Right.
when I responded, and I
Right.
did it,
right,
and it was taken care of.
right,
So, I mean, the vice chair always steps up if the chair
Right.
isn't available.
Yeah.
And you're right, we do work as a team, so,
right.
and that's what I want to do. I want to do what's best for the team.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that as long as everybody's up front and, you know, how can you go wrong?
And I just want to make sure too, you don't have any reservations here. In terms of that you honestly would feel comfortable knowing, given the presentation that we just laid out for each other, you feel comfortable. I don't want you to feel
No,
forced.
no,
You know what I'm saying?
and
That's all.
I've sort of been prepared because you and I had chatted that we're gonna have to reshuffle the deck now regardless.
Yes.
Because we had no chairman.
Right.
So it was unavoidable.
Yeah.
To have this conversation.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was sort of prepared for it. But like I said, unfortunately, I'm going through one of those life experiences
Yeah.
that, you know, you might not get me to respond the
Understand.
way I normally do.
Mhm.
And you'll know why.
Right.
You know, I would definitely relay that
Yep.
I need 2 days, 3
Yeah,
days.
and you know
whatever it
what?
is.
And that's what we do for each other. If you need whatever.
Well, that's
If you-
actually the
If you
nice,
need a bowl of soup,
right, that's actually the nice thing about being part of the town of Mendon.
right,
I've learned a lot of that, being part of the brothers.
Mhm.
There's always somebody out there
Right.
that can give you a hand, so.
right. And I think that's important.
As long as that
Right.
is, you know, gonna work for everybody,
Works for me.
I'm in.
Okay,
Yay.
so
Yeah, what do we do?
we're taking it to a vote. So the restructuring of the board will follow that Alan Greenberg would become chairman.
Mhm.
Tom Fickner would take the vice chair
Mhm.
and Joyce Gilmore would be the member.
Pick up.
Second,
Second.
aye,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
motion's passed.
thank you.
Yep,
I
thank you.
I appreciate your vote of confidence.
Absolutely, yeah.
Want the gavel now?
No,
Yeah, I gotta get him a gold plated one.
no. I really enjoy being an Indian. I really do.
Yeah, well, we can fix that too. Could I just have one thing I wanted to talk about was the lake.
Yes, ma'am.
Thing. And Dan, you may, you know, this is how I am, just so you know. I like go to bed and I like, okay, let's see. This would be interesting. Back in the day, when I was on the Board of Health, I was involved with a group of engineers that were doing studies on lakes and stuff like that. And I had met them because I was also the president of the Central Regional Boards of Health at the time.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that was good too. And so I happened, they happened to do a talk and I was like, oh, yeah, we have a lake and this is what we should do and stuff like that. But I was thinking about, and since we have a very highly something, what's the
Spit it out,
person?
Joyce.
Kim is our,
volatile?
no, Kim is our
Town administrator?
town administrator.
Yes.
Very highly regarded, I guess, because of the money
Yeah.
that I see. I was thinking about, you know, like Mass School of Pharmacy. They, you know, they have all kinds of things that they do for, you know, that kind of stuff. And Worcester Polytech, that we might, you know, we might get her to contact them to do the studies like for the lake. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I had a grant too back in the day to have that done. For doing testing for E. coli and all that stuff, because I was reading the testing results, which, you know, it's really kind of bizarre, because one day it's like 691 and then 2 days later it's 25, you know, and I'm like, you know, I didn't get that, but you know, I just got the information. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Day before.
Yeah. So I did have a few other things to do, but I went through it all. I was thinking, but I was just thinking that maybe we should see if there is some,
So this, I've suggested this a few times, and I don't know, it seems to go nowhere. I would love to see us form like a task force with members from all these boards, because this is what happens. So like, they did that study through Concom. There are more grants available.
right,
That guy actually sent some info. I don't think Concom was really, ready or really had the power to follow up on that. But I think there's grants out there for
Right.
additional studies that can be
Right.
done and work.
right. It seems to me that that's Kim's job, or her assistant, to find grants.
Right, well, I think in this case, it would make sense to have a group of people that could advocate and say, all right, we looked in, here's what we'd like to do.
Right,
I mean, I think the best way to success is to basically fill out the grant application, say, here, we need you to sign this.
right.
Things.
Well, I was just gonna say the same thing. Why don't we just do it ourselves? And if it got to the point where, because the way I understand how things are running is a lot of times it's a department that plants the seed
Right,
and they cultivate that seed as far as they can. And it doesn't get bumped upstairs until they need a signature from somebody that has more authority to act on behalf of the town than they have. So I like what I'm hearing from Dan. And eventually Dan is gonna have a little more time.
you
My,
think?
my season will slow down a little bit. So I would be more than willing to work with you and maybe someone like Wayne Phipps or someone else from the Lake Nipmuc
Right,
Association.
and I would be willing to work on it
Sure.
too. I mean, because again, back in the day, I was very involved with the lake, because nobody was doing anything. So I started a lake association.
Oh, okay.
Way back. And I mean, if you look, you'll see some of the things I think that are, I don't know where the information went, but my daughter drew a picture and that was the cover of their, yes, yes,
So I propose that after we get a few of these other things sorted out. that
Yeah.
are on the Board of Health
Right.
plate,
right.
that especially where we're coming to, I'll
The
call
end
it-
of the season.
Right, I'll call it off-season for the lake,
Correct.
that we try to be as diligent as possible so that we don't run into the same problem we ran into this year.
Right,
This year, we didn't start talking about that stuff till June,
right, right,
so we were behind.
right.
So.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to bring it up because
No, thank you.
I was thinking of it, and it was keeping me awake.
And
And I was just thinking that there are things that we can do.
Get the study from the Concom, Dan send it.
No, not yet, not yet.
Because that's basically what they said. It was like a baseline. They recommended, additional
Right,
studies and things.
right.
well, then we should
And
follow
that
up on
gentleman
those
had some
recommendations.
advice.
Yeah.
And I think Concom probably isn't the right place for it, even if it technically would be under their purview.
I don't think
They have
so.
enough on their plate with just permitting.
Right, yeah, I don't think so either, because I don't think so.
But I think getting the representation from all these groups
Right,
would help to.
Well,
Right.
there's two elements here that come into play that I think are key to try to addressing or putting people's concerns at ease with regard to the quality of the lake.
Mhm.
One is the concern that I think still somewhat exists with regard to possible contamination from a septic perspective.
right, for sure.
And the other is that I think has been determined, and I think we now need to push the envelope a bit, that there is external exposure from wastewater.
Oh,
What's the right term?
Runoff?
Runoff water, what's the right term?
Stormwater.
Stormwater, thank you.
Stormwater management.
Stormwater runoff.
right.
And for that to be addressed, that's gonna have to be done, I think, through like the state level, like.
That is definitely a
DEP.
state level because I've already played that card and you can find somebody that will do it
Right.
in the state. You've got to push a little bit and
Yep.
because, you know, you can say, well, look, this is your road because Route 16 is all your road and you're contaminating our, you know, part of your stuff is contaminating our lake, which is, you know, it is a wonderful
Resource.
resource, big word.
Let me bring you up to speed real quick, just what we already have in play. We had Lake Nipmuc Association, Wayne Phipps, and some others come, and we're actually proposing to put together a panel to educate us,
Right,
and it's gonna sort of be in conjunction. Board of Health, Lake Nipmuc Association will do it at one of their meetings,
yeah, good.
and we'll have, you know, stormwater engineer, we talked about a testing engineer, we talked about, I can't remember we 4 or 5 people. We don't want to make the
Right.
panel too big
Right.
because too much information
Oh,
we
yeah.
won't be able to
right,
absorb.
yeah. Well, not only that.
Right, we would rather do it again
Right,
with a
right.
different panel,
right,
but we're gonna sort of make it a discussion
right,
with a panel of educated people
right,
so that we can all try to understand
right,
how it's done, you know, what tests are applicable, what the results mean.
right,
So that's already in place and
Right.
that's something that Jack is already working on.
right.
So in conjunction with what you're proposing, my only question is, I know when my girls went to school, there was a site you could go to, I believe it was called Navient, something like that, where you could look for all the scholarships that were available for college. Is there such a site that you can go to look for grants that
Well,
are
it's not,
available?
it wouldn't be so much a grant as it would be if you were, I'm sure there is a site for grants, but I'm thinking about utilizing, educating kids and getting free, yeah, right.
Okay, so you're really targeting the educational institution and saying, here's an opportunity
Right,
for you
for
to do
you, because
field work.
this is what you do, this is what you're doing, this is what you're studying, this is how this works, so they would have kids come to and do it, but they would be
Supervised and
with
guided.
the
Gotcha.
professors,
Right, right.
you know, and do all that stuff. And they are so enthusiastic, you know, I mean.
Oh, yeah, because they're not in the
I mean, most
classroom,
of the
they're
time.
outdoors.
Yes.
applying
Because
what
they,
they're
yeah,
learning.
they're like so excited. Oh my gosh, look at this. And, you know, look at this beaver den and I never saw a beaver den and let's test the water here. And this is really contaminated and how does the stream go and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
blah,
I mean,
blah.
I mentioned to Jack also, the work that Milford, town of Milford had done on the
Diller
Cedar
Street.
Street swamp.
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe talking to the town engineer
right,
in Milford and getting some ideas of who they used, who they talked to,
right,
you know, anything that we
Yeah.
can
Right.
use to put together, like I said, a panel of 3, 4, 5 people
right,
to sort of get this discussion
right.
going.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a good fall and winter discussion because, you know, it's not, oh my God, that's 691.
Right.
No, we can't do that. So, I mean, I agree with that, but again, you know, my falling asleep but fairy tale is that, so.
But the other piece of it too is the testing component. And I had put out a couple of past meetings that, given the nature of the lake, and what it means to the community
Right,
and what we are about as a Board of Health, I put it out there that, from my perspective, the lake and having a healthy lake, quality water, I'm looking at that as a public health issue.
oh, definitely,
So meaning that I have no problem in making the Board of Health the spearhead group
right,
that takes on the direction
Right.
and moves it.
right,
I know there's been a lot of conversations between us your conservation, you know, you have the Lake Nemac Association doing things.
Right,
But I think it's best served if you conclude that there has to be a direction,
right,
as long as the direction's working. But you have to have a spear at the end
right.
that's plowing
See,
through.
In my world, I would do would be, I would do a study of every single house on the lake. Every single house. You've got a tight tank? How often do you have that pumped?
Missy's
Show me-
done that.
I was gonna
Missy's
say,
done that.
I'm
Done
looking
that?
for
Yes.
it.
Okay,
We-
so
it's done.
good, well, that's.
I can get you that information.
Right, and Jack actually put it into a
Put it
real
into a
nice format.
spreadsheet.
Oh, good,
We have a
okay.
nice
But
little
you see,
map.
that to me is that then you're starting off with, then you know who's got what and what they're doing and how often are they doing it? And you require a receipt that says you paid for your thing. I want to see the receipt for your tight tank.
Right, see,
The pumping.
You're talking about
they're
the
supposed to give us pumping records. The
Right.
hauler is obligated to give us pumping records.
By rule.
And we're finding that that's not always happening. And like I
Right.
said, if you see the
See, I think if you make the person who writes the check out, gets the receipt, have him bring the receipt to you,
For the
the
homeowner.
homeowner. If
So-
that's his job to have that done every so often. I mean, depends on how many people in the house, but.
well, yeah, they have a tight tank. They have to
Correct.
present us with an agreement.
Right,
They have
but
to
I'm
present
saying
us
I
with a
want them to
maintenance
show
agreement.
you the receipt of it that's done.
Hmm.
But I'm ready to go home.
All right,
Yeah, so we need a motion.
I move. that we go
we
home.
want to set another date?
Motion to adjourn,
You wanna
next,
set a date?
next meeting, that's right, would be,
Hit me,
August
Jack.
24th,
why not,
7:30 PM.
7:30.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right, excellent.
And are we here? Or are we playing at home?
August 24th.
So that I
What do you think, Mr. Chairman?
Select board is going to Mondays, I believe.
Yeah, we may still, since we have the allowance, utilize the remote. So, and I know it helps, is what Alan's work
Right.
is this time of year.
Right, that's
So-
fine with me, then.
So-
All right, so we'll do it remote next time
Remote.
and see how that goes. Okay.
Right, just as long as Jack is willing to.
And I don't want to hear any steaks in the background of your call,
No,
Right.
sizzling on the
Maybe
grill.
You get a copy of that presentation that Jack put
Yeah,
together,
I'll put it together for
that
you.
Missy worked on for a
Okay.
number of years.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, back with a big piece of paper and
Right,
making notes.
right.
Jack was, able to put it
Right.
together, but Missy did a lot of legwork on
A
that.
lot of legwork.
Right, because I'm very concerned. We adjourned, yeah.
We did.
We have adjourned.
Yeah, I
Stop the
just was
recording.
bringing up this
Good night.
stuff.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
No one,
folks.
no one's there.
No, good.